Chapter 22. After talking about business, Li Zixuan and Han Lijing began to eat. Naturally, the two of them didn't mind that most of the dishes on the table were almost finished by the two little fellows. Han Lijing was very happy to meet such a good young master who took the initiative to bring him business. He pulled his daughter along and toasted Li Zixuan. Li Zixuan also didn't refuse anyone. This meal was very enjoyable for everyone. Of course, it had to be said that Han Yushi's cooking skills were really good. The mushroom and pheasant stew was very delicious. Li Zixuan, who didn't like to eat stew, ate a lot. Of course, it was unknown whether the pheasant was made by Han Yushi. After lunch, Han Yushi began to clean up the dishes. Li Zixuan quickly asked Xiao He to help. At this time, Iron Egg said to Han Lijing, "Father, I'm going to the threshing field at the entrance of the village to play." At this time, Lana was also eager to try. She also felt that the scenery of the countryside was very novel. She said to her brother, "Brother, Lana wants to go out and play with Brother Iron Egg." "Well, then you can go with Iron Egg. Remember to come back in 2 hours." Li Zixuan thought about it. Since Iron Egg was Iron Egg's son, there shouldn't be any accidents if Lana followed Iron Egg to the village to play. At this time, Han Lijing said to Iron Egg solemnly, "Iron Egg, listen to me. You must take good care of the young miss. If anything happens to the young miss, I will skin you." Iron Egg quickly nodded in agreement. Even if his father didn't say it, he would do it. He wasn't a completely ignorant child. He naturally knew that the young master and the young miss were so good to their family. He was very grateful to them in his heart. Just like this, the two little brats went out. Li Zixuan chatted with Han Lijing in the front room. Not long after, Han Yushi finished cleaning up the dishes in the kitchen and came to the front room with Xiao He. She sat next to Han Lijing and listened to them quietly. After chatting for a while, Li Zixuan stood up and said, "Uncle Han, please tell the farmers about the business I told you about this morning. I want to go to the farm alone. When it's time for us to go back, I'll come and say goodbye to Uncle Han." Han Lijing hurriedly said, "Young master, you are not familiar with the manor. Let Yushi accompany young master." Li Zixuan declined. "How could I trouble Miss Han? I'll just walk around and come back. I won't get lost." In fact, he also hoped that he could go out with Han Yushi, but he couldn't show it so obviously. When it was time to decline, he still had to decline. Han Lijing waved his hand and said, it's okay. Yushi has nothing to do at home in the afternoon. It's just nice to go out with the young master." After saying that, he said to his daughter, "Yushi, accompany the young master to walk around the manor in the afternoon." Han Yushi softly replied, "Okay, father." Li Zixuan was a little happy in his heart, but his face was calm. He cupped his hands and said to Han Yushi, "Then I'll have to trouble Miss Han." Han Yushi hurriedly bowed and said, "It's okay." Li Zixuan then said to Xiao He and the others, "Xiao He, Xiao Shi, housekeeper Wang, the journey this morning was bumpy. You must be tired. Rest at Uncle Han's house for a while. After I finish walking around the manor, we'll go back." The few of them naturally agreed. However, Xiao He looked at her young master suspiciously. The way Li Zixuan looked at Han Yushi in the morning was caught by the quick-witted Xiao He. Xiao He was wondering if her young master had deliberately shaken them off and secretly went out with Han Yushi for a rendezvous. Li Zixuan naturally didn't know what the servant girl was thinking. He brought Han Yushi out. Li Zixuan walked side by side with Han Yushi on the small road in the countryside. He breathed in the fresh air, listened to the occasional crowing of chickens and barking of dogs in the village, and watched a group of naughty children chasing each other and playing not far ahead. At this moment, his heart was incomparably peaceful. It was as if he had returned to his previous life. It was the same small road in the countryside, the same crowing of chickens and barking of dogs, and the same village urchins. He couldn't help but have a deep sense of nostalgia in his eyes. Unfortunately, I can't go back anymore. Even if I build trains and planes in this era, I can't go back, Li Zixuan muttered in his heart. Han Yushi lowered her head and walked with Li Zixuan for a while, but Li Zixuan didn't say anything. She was a little curious and raised her head to look at Li Zixuan. She saw that Li Zixuan's expression was complicated and his eyes were confused. His gaze seemed to be nostalgic, but also seemed to be sad. When Han Yushi saw that gaze, She couldn't help but feel her heart ache. She whispered, young master, what are you thinking about?" When he heard Han Yushi's soft inquiry beside him, there seemed to be a faint trace of concern in her tone. He quickly woke up from his memories, sorted out his emotions, and tried to speak in a calm tone. "Nothing. It's just that when I saw the peaceful and comfortable scenery of the countryside, I thought of my master." Han Yushi asked curiously, "Young master, you have a master?" Li Zixuan recalled and said, "Yes. When I was young, my body was weak. All the doctors said that I wouldn't live past the age of 8. When I was 6, my master came to my house and told my father that he could cure me. He needed to take me to Mount Longhu to learn from him. That year, I went to Mount Longhu with my master. A few years ago, regardless of whether it was cold or hot, my master forced me to practice martial arts. My hands and feet were blistered, and my face was frostbitten, but my master didn't let me stop. At that time, I hated my master for being so cruel. Later, I finally learned something, but my master was old. At that time, I kind of understood my master's painstaking efforts. The conditions in the mountains were poor, but my master was always able to get me meat all these years. Before my master died, he told me that because my body was weak, I would die if I didn't practice martial arts well. He didn't want me to die, so he forced me when I was young and told me not to blame him. In fact, in the later years, I became more sensible and understood my master's painstaking efforts. I never blamed him. I became his disciple when I was 6 years old, and I spent my childhood with him. To me, he was more like a father than a teacher. For 8 years, he taught me top-notch martial arts without asking for anything in return, allowing me to live to this day. Before I could even repay him, he had already passed away. Of course, Li Zixuan couldn't tell her that he was thinking about his family more than 1,000 years later, so he told her what happened to this body when he was young. However, he spoke with sincerity. As he spoke, he couldn't help but put himself in the role of this body. When he got emotional, the corners of his eyes couldn't help but moisten. As Li Zixuan spoke, Han Yushi's heart also became sad. When she heard the end, she couldn't help but cry. She originally thought that Li Zixuan was a rich young master who didn't eat the hardships of the world. She didn't expect his life experience to be so rough. Looking at Li Zixuan's wet eyes, she saw Li Zixuan's bruised soul under his strong appearance. She couldn't help but feel her heart ache. "Young master, your master will definitely be very happy if he sees that you're doing well from the heavens. You said it yourself, your master treats you like a father treats his own child. Parents treat their children well, and they don't want their children to repay them. Young master, don't blame yourself. You living well now is the best way to repay your master." Han Yushi comforted gently. "That's right. When parents treat their children well, why would they think about their children repaying them in the future? Their love is the most selfless love in the world. They only hope that their children will live well in the future." When Li Zixuan heard this, he couldn't help but mutter in his heart, "Father, mother, your son is unfilial and can't be filial in front of you. However, in this great Tang Dynasty, I will live well. I will live well. You don't have to worry. Thank you, Miss Han. I'm fine." After thinking it through, Li Zixuan looked seriously into Han Yushi's eyes and thanked her. "You're welcome." Han Yushi was a little flustered by Li Zixuan's serious gaze and hurriedly said. Chapter 23. The two of them chatted and soon finished touring the village. Li Zixuan was a little reluctant to part with her. "Miss Han, where do you usually go to pick wild fruits?" Li Zixuan, who was reluctant to part with her, began to find a topic to talk about. Han Yushi pointed to the mountain behind them and said, "It's on that mountain." Li Zixuan looked in the direction of her finger and saw the dense forest on the small hill. He said, "Aren't you afraid when you go alone? What if you meet a wild beast like a tiger?" Han Yushi smiled and said, "A few years ago, there were indeed some fierce tigers and fierce beasts in this mountain. But during those years, the world was in chaos and the harvest was not good. Many people in the village were starving. My father organized the villagers to go into the mountain to hunt. In the past few years, all the large beasts in the mountain have been hunted." Li Zixuan heard and said, "Oh, Then let's go up the mountain to take a look. Han Yushi nodded in agreement. The two of them walked up the mountain. At the foot of the mountain, a few peach blossoms were in full bloom. It was very beautiful. A few butterflies danced in the wildflowers by the roadside. A few birds chased each other and played in the forest on the mountain. Li Zixuan was very happy with the beauty by his side and the beautiful scenery in front of him. Miss Han, I have a question, but I don't know if it's appropriate to ask. Li Zixuan asked, Young master, if you have something to say, Yushi will tell you everything she knows. Li Zixuan hesitated and said, Why didn't I see your mother at your house? Han Yushi's face instantly turned pale. Deep sadness flashed in her eyes. Li Zixuan saw this and immediately apologized. I'm sorry, Miss Han. I took the liberty. Don't be sad. Han Yushi shook her head and was silent for a while before saying, My mother passed away after giving birth to the Iron Egg. I was 7 years old at that time. My father was still fighting in the front line. In order to support my brother, I went to help Master Lu in the nearby Plum Village to herd cattle and sheep. I fed the horses and chopped firewood. When I earned money, I bought goat milk for my brother. This Master Lu's family was the previous owner of the Han village. They were very harsh and often bullied the villagers in the village. Everyone was angry but didn't dare to say anything. They were afraid that landlord Lu wouldn't let them plant the land. Iron Egg was very naughty when he was young. He would cry whenever I left, so I could only take him to work. Later, when I couldn't hold on any longer, my father finally came back. It was when I was 9 years old, which was the 6th year of Wuda. My father came back with a limp. My father, Wuda, joined the army in the first year of the Yuan Dynasty. Later, he was transferred to old General Qin's personal guard. In the 6th year of Wuda, the Turks attacked the borders of our great Tang, and my father accompanied General Qin to battle. Later on, I heard my father say that during a pursuit, General Qin was ambushed by the Turks. The Turks' great general Ashina, Shirkyu, wanted to kill General Qin with a bow and arrow. At the critical moment, my father rushed over on his horse and threw himself at General Qin, but the arrow pierced through my father's thigh. At that time, he didn't have time to treat his wound. My father limped and followed General Qin to kill the enemy. Coincidentally, General Yuchi led the army to help. My father and General Qin fought their way out of the encirclement and followed the reinforcements to destroy the enemy. After returning to the camp, although the arrow wound on my father's thigh was healed, because the treatment was too late, his right leg became disabled and it was difficult for him to return to the battlefield. My father knew that General Qin would definitely not abandon him, but my father didn't want to be a burden to General Qin. Thus, he left a letter and secretly came back alone. Following Han Yushi's recollection, Li Zixuan's thoughts also returned to the era where the flames of war raged and human lives were like grass. In his heart, he also admired a tough man like Han Lijing. Without countless people like Han Lijing fighting bloody battles, the Great Tang would not have its current peace. Perhaps the Han people's clothes would have been slaughtered by the armored cavalry of the foreign race. No wonder he saw a MO saber in Han Lijing's house. He didn't expect him to be a respectable soldier of the Great Tang. He also didn't expect Han Yushi to be so strong on the inside, despite her weak appearance. At the age of 7, she raised her infant brother alone. One could imagine the difficulties and hardships she went through. Li Zixuan saw that Han Yushi's eyes were still filled with sadness. He couldn't help but pat her on the shoulder and said, Miss Han, don't be sad. At least you, Iron Egg, and your father are all doing well now. If your mother knew in the netherworld, she would definitely be gratified. Besides, with me around, the people of the Han family village will live better and better lives in the future. As he spoke, Li Zixuan didn't know how to continue. He wasn't very good at comforting people. Seeing Li Zixuan racking his brains to think of words to comfort her, Han Yushi couldn't help but laugh through her tears. She said, I just comforted young master. I didn't expect young master to comfort me again. Hearing Han Yushi's words, Li Zixuan thought about it and felt that it was rather interesting. He smiled and said, In that case, let's not comfort each other. We'll be happy in the future. This way, We can let the ancestors who love us leave at ease. Han Yushi agreed softly, yes. At this moment, she felt the weight on her shoulder. It turned out that Lisa Xuan's hand had been resting on her shoulder. Han Yushi turned her head to look and immediately blushed. Lisa Xuan followed her gaze and found his hand. He secretly blamed himself for forgetting to take it off when he patted her shoulder to comfort her. Of course, whether it was because he forgot to take it off or because he couldn't bear to take it off at that time, it wasn't for others to know. Feeling the warmth of his fingertips and smelling the feminine fragrance on Han Yushi's body, he couldn't help but feel a little restless. However, seeing that the tears at the corner of Han Yushi's eyes had not dried, Li Zixuan secretly scolded himself for being a beast. He quickly took his hand off and explained awkwardly, Sorry. I wanted to comfort you just now. I didn't mean it." Han Yushi's face turned even redder when she heard that. She clenched her small hands and looked down at her toes. She said softly, "It's okay. Yushi knows that young master is not a frivolous person." The ambiguous atmosphere filled the mountain. Li Zixuan didn't know what to say at this moment. Although he had a girlfriend in his previous life, he met her online. In reality, he was still clumsy when he spoke. He was an out-and-out otaku. He wasn't like the playboy in his dormitory. When he saw a girl, he could make her happy with just a few words. He couldn't wait to marry her immediately. He had always been envious of his roommate's ability to flirt with girls, but this thing couldn't be envied. Han Yushi naturally wouldn't speak. At this moment, her heart was also in a mess. Li Zixuan was tall and handsome. He was also very gentle to her. Although she didn't love Li Zixuan very deeply, after all, they had only been together for a day, she still had a good impression of Li Zixuan. After a long time, Li Zixuan finally broke the silence and said, "Miss Han, let's go down the mountain. It's getting late. I should go home." When Han Yushi heard that, her face darkened slightly. She felt a little disappointed for no reason. She didn't know when they would meet again after parting today. She replied softly, "Okay." The two walked down the mountain side by side. Chapter 24. Li Zixuan was about to go down the mountain with Han Yushi when they suddenly heard a muffled tiger roar behind them. The two of them looked at each other in shock and hurriedly turned around. They saw a huge white tiger slowly walking out of the forest. Its ferocious eyes stared coldly at Li Zixuan and Han Yushi. Han Yushi was so scared that her face turned pale. "Young master, you go first. Nothing can happen to you. I will hold it back for a while." Han Yushi was extremely frightened. She had never seen such a huge tiger before, but she immediately thought of Li Zixuan. Li Zixuan absolutely could not have anything happen to him in the Han village. He was the hope of so many villagers in the Han village to live a good life. Li Zixuan was actually a little scared. It was his first time seeing such a huge tiger. Moreover, this tiger was emitting a bloody smell. It was obvious that it had just finished hunting. He did not know if his martial arts could deal with this huge tiger. After all, he had experience fighting with people, but he had never fought with a tiger. However, when he heard Han Yushi's trembling voice, he was really touched. He did not expect this girl to ask him to go first, even though she was clearly scared. Of course, Li Zixuan wouldn't leave. Although he didn't have any experience in fighting a tiger, he was quite confident in his martial arts. Besides, even if he couldn't win, he wouldn't let the girl he liked sacrifice herself to protect him. Seeing that the tiger was getting closer and closer to the two of them, Li Zixuan pulled Han Yushuan's soft and boneless hand. At this time, he was not in the mood to feel the beautiful girl's hand. He said in a very serious tone, "Miss Han, when you encounter a tiger, you must not turn around and run. That will only lead to death. A human cannot outrun a tiger. In a while, you will face the tiger and slowly retreat. I will deal with this beast. I, Li Zixuan, will not let a woman stand in front of me." Han Yushi shook her head and refused to leave. She thought that Li Zixuan was going to use his life to buy time for her to escape. At this moment, the little girl's tears flowed freely. Li Zixuan was also a little helpless, but there wasn't much time left for them. He squeezed Han Yushi's hand and said very seriously, "Miss Han, listen to me. I have the confidence to deal with this tiger, but if you stay by my side, I'm afraid that the tiger will hurt you. I can't take care of you. Stay away from here. You have to believe me. I really can deal with it." Perhaps Li Zixuan's calmness had infected her. Han Yushi composed herself and nodded at Li Zixuan. She looked at the tiger and began to retreat step by step. When the tiger saw that someone was retreating, it was about to chase after him when it heard Li Zixuan shout, "Evil creature, your opponent is me." It was Li Zixuan who picked up a long stick from the ground with the tip of his foot and blocked in front of the tiger to buy some time for Han Yushi to retreat. After all, the tiger was extremely fast. If they fought and the tiger turned to attack Han Yushi, he was afraid that he wouldn't be able to save her. Li Zixuan didn't bring a sword when he came out in the afternoon. He could only pick up a stick as a weapon. After all, he didn't expect that he would be so unlucky to meet a big tiger when he went out. When the tiger saw that the person in front of it actually took the initiative to provoke it, it was furious. It roared angrily and kicked its hind legs hard. It flew towards Li Zixuan's face. It wanted to crush the head of the person who dared to challenge its dignity. Although the tiger was fast, it was not enough in Li Zixuan's eyes. He had full confidence that he could dodge this attack, but he couldn't. Han Yushi hadn't retreated far behind him. "How dare you?" Li Zixuan roared. Holding the long stick, he flew towards the big tiger and ruthlessly smashed it in the head. However, the tiger was quite intelligent. It was unwilling to use its head to receive this blow. It immediately turned its head in the air. Li Zixuan's fatal blow hit the tiger's butt. The tiger fell to the ground and cried out in pain. Not only did this blow not scare it away, but it also aroused the tiger's ferocity. The tiger bared its teeth and slowly moved, looking for the next opportunity to attack. Li Zixuan didn't want to give it a chance to think. He used the orchid butterfly steps and arrived in front of the tiger in a flash. The cloud-piercing steps that Li Zixuan used before was a light body technique. It was more useful for long-distance travel and climbing over high ground. The orchid butterfly steps was a close-range footwork technique. The instantaneous burst of speed was very shocking. It was very useful in close-range combat. It was like a vigorous butterfly moving left and right in the battlefield, making it difficult for the enemy to distinguish. The big tiger didn't expect Li Zixuan to be so fast. At this time, it was too late for it to dodge. It used its head to take the blow and was immediately sent flying 10 meters away. Its eyes were seeing stars. The tiger was furious. Since its debut, it had never suffered such a big loss. With a leap, it pounced towards Li Zixuan again. Li Zixuan didn't expect the tiger's head to be so hard. It could still counterattack after being hit by his stick. Therefore, he held the stick in front of his chest with both hands and waited for the tiger to rush over to give it a ruthless blow. Unexpectedly, the tiger changed direction in the air and used its foreleg to block Li Zixuan's long stick. Its hind leg fiercely kicked Li Zixuan's arm and flew straight towards the retreating Han Yushi. It saw that Li Zixuan was not to be trifled with, so it changed direction and wanted to bite Han Yushi. When the tiger kicked his arm, Li Zixuan had a bad feeling and guessed its intention. He secretly cursed this beast for being so cunning, just like a tiger demon that had turned into a spirit. Ignoring the burning pain in his arm, Li Zixuan hurriedly turned around. He couldn't bear to see such a beautiful girl like Han Yushi die in the tiger's mouth. He saw that the big tiger was now less than 5 feet away from Han Yushi, and he was now more than 10 feet away from Han Yuxuan. Li Zixuan's eyes were about to split open. He used all his strength to activate the 5th level of the Taishan Sutra and poured all his inner strength into his legs. His lower clothes couldn't stand the violent power of the true essence. His trousers were immediately torn apart, and blood seeped out of his calves. Li Zixuan roared and used the orchid butterfly steps with all his strength. His speed had reached the limit in an instant. Like a sharp arrow, he flew towards the tiger. Li Zixuan even heard a sonic boom at this moment. The air rushed back from his cheeks and scraped his face painfully. Seeing that the tiger's front claws were about to grab Han Yushi's face, Li Zixuan arrived first. He had already reached the top of the tiger's head. He held the long rod tightly with both hands and poured his inner strength into the long rod. Then, he ruthlessly pierced the tiger's neck. The tiger let out the last scream of its life. For a moment, blood splattered everywhere. Lisa Xuan and the tiger fell at Han Yushi's feet. When the tiger jumped from Li Zexuan's body to her, Han Yushi was already a little scared and didn't know what to do. She couldn't move her legs. When she saw that the tiger's front claws were about to touch her face was filled with despair. Although her heart was filled with the fear of death, at this moment, she still prayed in her heart that the young master could escape. Just as she was about to close her eyes and welcome death, she saw a man holding a long rod above the tiger. It was Li Zexuan. Because he was too fast, the wind blew Li Zexuan's long hair. His handsome face was full of anxiety and worry. He held the rod with both hands, like a hero. When the tiger was about to grab her face, he stabbed the tiger's neck. Han Yushi, who was in despair, couldn't help but be a little dazed when she saw this scene. She would never forget this scene for the rest of her life. Bang! Two muffled sounds came from the woods. All the dust settled, and the mountains returned to peace. When the tiger's warm blood splashed on Han Yushi's face, Han Yushi came back to her senses and realized that she was saved. She looked lovingly at Li Zexuan, who was kneeling on one knee on the tiger's stomach, but still holding the long rod on the tiger's neck tightly with both hands. At this moment, Han Yushi felt that a person had entered her heart, a man that she would never forget for the rest of her life. "Young master, are you okay?" Seeing the bloody scratches on Li Zexuan's arm, Han Yushi hurriedly squatted down and cried. Seeing this peerless beauty crying in front of him, Li Zexuan hurriedly said, "Miss Han, I'm fine. I was just scratched by that beast. It's not a big deal. Don't cry." Han Yushi grabbed Li Zexuan's hand and looked at his bloody arm and calf. She couldn't help but cry out, "What do you mean you're fine? You've lost so much blood. How can you be fine? Why are you in such a hurry to save me? I won't die if I'm scratched by that tiger." Boo-hoo. As she spoke, she couldn't help but throw herself into Li Zexuan's arms and cry bitterly. Li Zexuan didn't care about enjoying the beauty in his arms. He wanted to pat Han Yushi's back with his hand, but seeing that his hand was full of blood, he was afraid of dirtying her clothes. He could only give up and comfort her softly. "Miss Han, I'm really fine. This is all the blood on the tiger's body. I'm not seriously injured. I'll be fine after I go back and bandage it. Don't cry. You won't be beautiful if you keep crying." After comforting her for a long time, Han Yushi stopped crying. She raised her head and looked at Li Zexuan with tears in her eyes. "Young master, can you not call me Miss Han in the future?" Li Zexuan was stunned for a while before he reacted. He was a little happy and said, "Then I will call you Yushi, okay?" Han Yushi's face was slightly red as she replied in a low voice. His relationship with this beautiful girl had finally improved a little. Li Zexuan was a little excited. At this moment, seeing Han Yushi's blushing face, he wanted to tease her a little. He smiled and said, "Then Yushi, can you not call me young master in the future? As a good friend, isn't it too distant for you to call me young master?" Han Yushi also felt that what he said seemed to make sense, so she asked, "Then, what should I call you? Why don't you call me Brother Xian Yushi?" Li Zexuan shamelessly suggested. "No way, I'll call you young master." Han Yushi's face suddenly looked as if a big red cloth was hanging on it. Sigh. The revolution had yet to succeed. He still needed to work hard. After failing to fool her, Li Zexuan was not discouraged. He continued, "Yushi, let's go down the mountain now. Lana and the rest must be waiting anxiously." "Are we leaving just like that?" Han Yushi felt a little sad. After all, she was not someone from the same world as him. Li Zexuan used the long rod to pick up the big tiger and brought Han Yushi down the mountain. However, he did not know that something big had happened at the foot of the mountain. Chapter 25. 2 hours ago, at the threshing field of the Han village. "Brother Iron Egg, what's so fun about the threshing field?" As soon as they arrived at the threshing field, Lana couldn't wait to ask. "I made an appointment with the Nyo, Nyo, and Juzi this morning to fight grasshoppers in the threshing field in the afternoon." Iron Egg replied. At this time, they saw that there were already 3 children squatting on the ground waiting for them on the threshing field. So they hurried over. Iron Egg, why are you so late? A chubby boy with a runny nose pointed at Iron Egg and said discontentedly, Hee hee, Ernyo, I have something to do at home today. Iron Egg touched his stomach and said embarrassedly. In fact, the chicken he ate at noon was too delicious, so he ate happily and forgot that there was such a thing in the afternoon. Iron Egg, who is she? A slightly taller chubby boy next to Ernyo pointed at Lanner and said, Hello, my name is Lanner. I'm Iron Egg's elder sister. Lanner didn't wait for Iron Egg to speak and hurriedly introduced herself. Didn't Iron Egg have an elder sister? The children were a little confused, but seeing that Iron Egg didn't refute, they just thought that Lanner was Iron Egg's distant elder sister. The taller chubby boy said, Oh, hello, Iron Egg's elder sister. My name is Daniel. Another dark skinny boy also introduced himself. My name is Juzi. At this time, Ernyo said, Iron Egg, you and your elder sister came late and haven't caught grasshoppers yet. Go and catch them quickly. The 3 of us have already caught them. After saying that, he proudly showed the grasshopper in his hand. Iron Egg heard this and immediately pulled Lanner to the field to look for grasshoppers. At this time, grasshoppers haven't grown up yet. They were all small green grasshoppers, so it was difficult to find them in the green grass. Lanner looked for a long time, but couldn't find one. She was a little anxious. At this time, she heard Iron Egg exclaim, I caught one. Lanner hurriedly went over and saw a medium-sized green grasshopper in Iron Egg's hand. In this season, such a big grasshopper was already considered big. Lanner quickly said, Brother Iron Egg, give this to me. Go and catch another one. Before he could finish speaking, he quickly snatched the grasshopper from Iron Egg's hands. Iron Egg had a bitter expression on his face. It was not easy for him to catch this, but it was snatched away before he could even warm it up. At this moment, Lanner whispered, The next time you come to the Han Manor, I'll bring you 2 plates of nibbled chicken. Hearing this, Bruiser was immediately overjoyed. He eagerly went to catch more grasshoppers. Lanner looked at the little grasshopper in her hand. The more she looked at it, the more she liked it. She said to the grasshopper, Wow, you look so mighty. You look like a general. I'll name you Wei Qing. After naming it, Lanner was quite pleased with herself. After a while, Iron Egg caught another grasshopper. Although it was not as majestic as the one in Lanner's hand, it was not small either. Lanner looked at it and said to Iron Egg, Brother Iron Egg, your grasshopper will be called Huotsubing. Let's go and kill them all. The 2 of them brought their grasshoppers back to the threshing field. After greeting Daniel, Ernyo, and Juzi, the 5 of them took out their grasshoppers and started a fight. After a while, as expected, only Lanner's Wei Qing and Iron Egg's Huotsubing were left. At this moment, Lanner picked up Wei Qing and said, There's no need to fight anymore. My Wei Qing is first. Brother Iron Egg's Huotsubing is second. Iron Egg heard this and had a bitter expression. He was about to object when Lanner raised a finger to signal him. A plate of nibbled chicken? Iron Egg understood Lanner's meaning and swallowed his saliva. His eyes lit up, and he hurriedly nodded in agreement. Oh, I was wondering who this was. Iron Egg, are you fighting grasshoppers? At this moment, everyone heard a male duck's voice coming from the village entrance. Iron Egg looked at the person who had come. It was a wretched fatty around 10 years old with 3 moles on his face. He frowned and said, Lu Haojian, why are you here? Why can't I be here? Lu Haojian raised his eyebrows and said, This young master is here to fight your grasshopper today. It just so happens that you just finished fighting those 3 brats. Quickly take out your grasshopper and fight with this young master. I won't fight with you. Iron Egg frowned and said. After saying this, he pulled Lanner back home. Huh, you won't fight with me? This little girl is quite cute. If you don't fight with me, this young master will capture her and make her my maid, Lu Haojian said with ill intentions. After he said this, a few servants went up to block Lanner and Iron Egg's path. Iron Egg heard this and was furious. You dare? This is the Han Manor. My father will beat you to death when he comes. Hearing Iron Egg mention his father, Lu Haojian's eyes flashed with a trace of hatred. He said hatefully, "Bah, your father's a lame old thing. A few years ago, every time I came to collect rent with my father, that old thing, your father just had to meddle in other people's business. Sooner or later, I will kill that old thing." Iron Egg heard the other party cursing his father, and his eyes were spitting fire. He clenched his fists so hard that his nails dug into his flesh. He said angrily, "That's because your rent scale is not following the rules. That's why my father stepped in." Lu Haojian waved his hand and said, "Don't talk so much nonsense. Are you going to fight or not? If you don't, I will capture this little girl and make her my maid." At this moment, Lan pulled Iron Egg's hand and asked in a low voice, "Who is this ugly fatty?" Bruiser almost laughed out loud when he heard this. He quickly explained in a low voice, "He is the son of our Han Manor's previous owner, Lu Haojian. This person used to bully the people in our manor and is very bad." Lan heard this and suggested, "Brother Iron Egg, you should fight with him first. Your Huatsubing will definitely not lose. Let's stall for time and wait for my brother to come and beat him to death." Iron Egg heard this and felt that it made sense. He nodded and walked out. "Lu Haojian, I will fight with you." When Lu Haojian heard that he had finally agreed, he grinned. The fat on his face was piled up with wrinkles. Lan who was watching from the side, felt a little disgusted. She couldn't help but think to herself that when her brother came later, she would definitely ask him to smash this disgusting fatty's face. Iron Egg and Lu Haojian took out their grasshoppers and placed them together. Huatsubing was obviously stronger and killed Lu Haojian's grasshopper in a few rounds. Lu Haojian saw this and was furious. "You cheated. I want to see your grasshopper." Iron Egg naturally had a clear conscience and placed the grasshopper in his hand for him to see. Who knew that Lu Haojian would snatch Huatsubing away and throw him on the ground and stomp him to death? Iron Egg saw that his favorite had been stomped to death and was furious. He wanted to fight. "What about me? You want to hit me? Come and hit me. Come and hit me." Lu Haojian pointed at his own face and taunted Bruiser. Iron Egg was furious, but when he saw the 6 or 7 servants behind Lu Haojian, he calmed down. If he was alone, he would run. If he could not win, he would just be caught and beaten. However, he had Sister Lan by his side. His father had told him to take good care of Sister Lan, so he could not take the risk. A wise man does not fight when the odds are against him. Iron Egg hatefully said in his heart, "Coward, you don't even dare to hit me." Lu Haojian spat at Iron Egg's feet in disdain. Just as he was about to leave, he heard a voice. "Lu Haojian, you are so despicable." Lan could not bear to see Iron Egg's brother being bullied and scolded from the side. Lu Haojian heard this, and his eyes turned red. In the past, there were people who used his name to make fun of him, but that person's legs were broken by Lu Haojian's servants. He did not expect to be scolded by a little girl today. Lu Haojian glared at Lan and roared, "You guys go and grab this little girl and beat her until her mouth is swollen." Chapter 26. A group of servants rushed over to surround Lan in an aggressive manner. "Who dares?" Iron Egg was shocked when he saw this. He picked up a bamboo stick from the haystack next to him and stood in front of Lan waving the bamboo stick in his hand fiercely. The servants were a little hesitant. Lu Haojian shouted from behind, "Hurry up and attack him. There are so many of you who are afraid of this little brat." Iron Egg didn't wait for them to come up. He took the initiative to attack, waving the bamboo stick in front of him. Immediately, a servant's head was hit. Iron Egg continued to use the crazy devil stick technique to rush towards Lu Haojian. Lu Haojian saw this and ran away, cursing as he ran, "You bunch of trash. You can't even take him down with so many people. I'll teach you a lesson when I get back." Ow! Iron Egg hit the back of Lu Haojian's head with the stick. Seeing Lu Haojian being hit, Lan jumped up happily and clapped. "Little brother Iron Egg, come on, hit him hard." Lu Haojian was completely angry. He shouted at the servants, "Hurry up and attack him. Even if you get hurt, take the stick from that brat for me." Sure enough, when 2 of the servants heard this, they pushed against Tai Dan's rod and approached him. No matter how much strength Tai Dan used, the two of them could only endure it. Finally, the two of them got close to Iron Egg. One of the servants grabbed the stick from Iron Egg's hand. The rest of the servants immediately rushed forward and held Iron Egg down. Iron Egg was anxious and shouted at Lana, Sister Lana, "Hurry up and go back and call my father." Lana didn't try to be brave. She quickly ran to Iron Egg's house to get help. Lu Haojian saw this and sneered. "Want to run? You two go and catch that stinky girl for me." The two servants quickly chased after Lana. Soon they caught Lana. They didn't notice that Erniu had secretly run away. Lu Haojian walked in front of Iron Egg and ruthlessly slapped the Iron Egg's face twice. He hatefully said, "You little bastard, hit me, hit me." Then he spat at the Iron Egg. Iron Egg's face turned red with anger. He clenched his fists and stared at Lu Haojian's fat face. When had he ever suffered such humiliation? Especially when he was beaten up by this fatty in front of Sister Lana, he felt even more humiliated. He secretly swore in his heart that he would definitely take revenge. Li Zishuan carried the big tiger and finally walked to the front of the Han family's courtyard with Han Yushi. Just as she was about to enter, she saw a little fatty with snot running towards Han Yushi. Sister Yushi, quickly tell your father to go to the village entrance." Iron Egg was beaten up and someone called Lana was also caught. The little fatty ran in front of Han Yushi and said while panting. Li Zishuan was shocked when he heard this. He didn't dare to talk nonsense. He threw down the tiger on his shoulder and hugged Han Yushi's slender waist. He used all his strength to use the cloud-piercing steps and rushed towards the village entrance like a gust of wind. Erniu put his hands on his knees and lowered his head to catch his breath. He didn't hear Han Yushi speak for a long time. When he looked up, there was no one in front of him. He muttered, "Am I hallucinating?" Just as he was about to turn around and go back, he saw two young girls and an old man come out of the house. The young girl in green grabbed him and asked, "Little brother, who did you say was caught?" Erniu replied, "Iron Egg and Lana." The three of them turned pale with fright. They heard the old man say, "Xiao He, quickly go to the village and find Han Lijing. Tell him to go to the village entrance quickly. Xiao Shi and I will go first." After saying that, the three of them hurriedly split up. These three people were Xiao Shi, Xiao He, and Steward Wang, who were resting in the Han family. They heard the noise outside the courtyard and hurriedly rushed out to investigate. Village entrance, threshing field. After Lu Haojian humiliated Iron Egg, he was about to rush towards Lana. Iron Egg said anxiously, "Lu Haojian, if you have the ability, come at me." "What kind of ability is bullying girls?" "Oh, you haven't been beaten enough? Then I'll fulfill your wish." After saying that, he kicked Iron Egg's stomach twice. Iron Egg was on the ground holding his stomach in pain, but he still stubbornly said, "Lu Haojian, if you have the ability, come at me. Don't bully Lana." Lu Haojian couldn't be bothered with him. He turned around and was about to teach Lana a lesson. When Lana saw Lu Haojian hitting Iron Egg, she was so angry that her face turned red. She said angrily, "Lu Haojian, stop. When my brother comes, he'll beat you to death." Lu Haojian scolded, "Stupid girl, you dared to scold me before. See if I don't tear your mouth apart." After saying that, he reached out to pull Lana's mouth. "Stop." At this moment, a loud roar came from outside the crowd. Lu Haojian saw a young man in a servant's uniform walking over. He sneered, "Which family's dog's servant dares to meddle in my business? Are you blind? How dare you touch my young miss?" This servant was San Bao. Previously, Li Zishuan asked San Bao to watch the carriage at the village entrance. In the afternoon, San Bao took a nap on a haystack at the side. When she woke up, she saw many people gathered at the threshing field and wanted to take a look. Just as she walked over, she heard Lan scolding Lu Haojian. Her young miss was being bullied. San Bao quickly ran over. When she saw Lu Haojian about to pull Lan Er's mouth, she immediately stopped him. Lu Haojian was furious when he heard that. A stupid servant dared to speak rudely to him. He shouted to the two servants beside him, "The two of you, go and beat this dog's servant to death. Beat him to death." After being angered one after another, Lu Haojian was losing his mind. Two fists were no match for four hands. San Bao was quickly beaten down by the two servants. Lu Haojin came over and kicked San Bao more than 10 times. San Bao felt something sweet in her throat and finally couldn't help but vomit a few mouthfuls of blood. Lan saw San Bao vomiting blood on the ground. She was so anxious that she cried, "Stop beating him. Lu Haojin, stop." Lu Haojin walked towards Lan and sneered, "Stupid girl, no one will come to save you now, right?" Lan snorted, "My brother will be here in a while. When he comes, I'll smash your ugly face." Hearing this little girl call him ugly, Lu Haojin was furious. He reached out to tear Lan's mouth. At this moment, Lu Haojin suddenly heard the sound of something breaking through the air. Following that, he saw a foot getting bigger and bigger in front of his eyes. Lu Haojin instantly flew out like a kite with a broken string. Li Zixuan brought Han Yushi to the threshing field. He saw a fat man with 3 moles on his face. He was about to reach out to pinch Lan's face. Li Zixuan couldn't help but be furious. He usually couldn't even bear to speak harshly to his sister Lan, let alone hit her. Now that he saw this fat man wanted to hit Lan, Li Zixuan couldn't hold it in anymore. He put down Han Yushi and used his movement technique. He dashed to a spot not far behind Lan in a few steps. He leaped up and kicked the fat man's face. Then, Li Zixuan gently landed on the ground. Without stopping, he kicked the 2 servants who were holding on to Lan's arms and sent them flying. Li Zixuan pulled Lan to his side and carefully looked at her. When he found that Lan was not injured, he was slightly relieved. He secretly rejoiced that he had arrived in time. Otherwise, who knew how much his little sister would have suffered? Li Zixuan's series of actions happened in a flash. The other servants didn't even have time to react before their young master was kicked to the ground. The servants were shocked. They quickly helped Lu Haojin up and protected him in the middle. Lan saw that her brother had finally come to save her. She hugged her brother's arm excitedly and cried, "Brother, this damn fatty bullied Lan." Li Zixuan patted Lan's shoulder and wiped her tears. He couldn't help but feel his heart break. He comforted her in a low voice. "Don't be afraid, Lan. Brother will avenge you." Lu Haojin's face was covered in blood. He looked ferocious. Li Zixuan's kick almost knocked him out. Even if he didn't faint, Lu Haojin was seeing stars. He had never been hit like this before. He shook his head and chased the stars away. He pointed at Li Zixuan and shouted incoherently, "All of you go, cripple him." Chapter 27. Iron Egg. Suddenly, a sorrowful cry was heard. Han Yushi rushed to Iron Egg, who was lying on the ground and clutching his stomach. She squatted down and helped Iron Egg sit up. Looking at Iron Egg's red and swollen face, Han Yushi couldn't help but cry out, "Iron Egg, how are you? Does it hurt?" "Sister, Iron Egg is fine. Iron Egg doesn't hurt." Iron Egg didn't hurt Sister Lan. Hiss! Iron Egg tried hard to squeeze out a smile to comfort his sister, but affected the wound on his mouth. At this moment, Li Zixuan also saw Iron Egg, who was lying on the ground with red and swollen cheeks, and San Bao, who had blood on the corner of her mouth and her clothes were dyed red. When he heard Iron Egg's weak voice, he guessed that the 2 of them were injured while trying to buy time to protect Lan. His heart ached. He liked Iron Egg, this clever child, very much. He wanted to bring him to his shop to learn something in the future, but he didn't expect him to be so seriously injured today. San Bao was also loyal to him, but today she was beaten to the point of vomiting blood to protect Lan. Li Zixuan's anger rose. He stared at the servants and Lu Haojin in front of him with murderous intent. If he hadn't rushed over in time today, the consequences would have been hard to say. They dared to bully Lan and hit the people around him. They must pay the price. The servants saw Li Zixuan's murderous gaze and the blood on Li Zixuan's body. This was the blood from the tiger on the mountain. He didn't even have time to change his clothes. At this moment, Li Zixuan made the servants feel that this person was like a demon from hell. They usually ran amok in the village and had never seen such a terrifying person. Hearing Lu Haojin's roar, the servants didn't dare to step forward. They were just paid to be servants. There was no need to put their lives on the line. At this moment, Lu Haojin's mind was slightly clearer. Looking at the murderous Lisa Schwan, he felt that this person was not easy to deal with. Today's matter would not be settled peacefully. He pulled over a servant and whispered a few words into his ear. That servant immediately ran away like a wisp of smoke. Lisa Schwan knew that this fatty wanted to call for reinforcements. He looked at them coldly and did not stop them. It just so happened that there were not enough people in front of him to vent the anger in his heart. However, before the fatty's reinforcements arrived, there were many things he could do. Lisa Schwan looked at Iron Egg and asked, "Iron Egg, who is this fatty? Why did he hit you?" When Iron Egg saw that Lisa Schwan had come to the rescue, he let out a sigh of relief. The task given to him by his father was finally completed. Now that he heard the young master's question, he stood up with the help of his sister and told Lisa Schwan everything that had happened in the afternoon. After he finished, he stared at Lu Haojian with eyes full of hatred. After hearing this, Lisa Schwan could no longer hold back his anger. He stared coldly at Lu Haojian as if he was looking at a dead man. "Lu Haojian, how do you want to die today?" Lu Haojian trembled under this cold stare. He had never felt that death was so close to him. He did not care about Lisa Schwan's scolding and trembled in fear. You can't kill me. I only beat up these two brats. You can't kill me. My father is Lu Shuren. If you kill me, my father won't let you off." Let's see if I dare to do it today." Lisa Schwan dodged to the side. Lu Haojian didn't even see his movements clearly. He only heard the miserable screams of the guards protecting him. He saw those guards fly a dozen or so meters away like kites with their strings cut. They crashed heavily onto the ground, unable to crawl back up. Then, Lu Haojian's vision blurred. He only felt a sledgehammer ruthlessly hit the left side of his face. Before he could scream, he was sent flying. Brother hit that fatty's face. He just wanted to tear Lon or his mouth. Brother wants to avenge Lon, and brother Iron Egg. Lon jumped up and said to her brother. She was not as scared as before when she saw her brother showing off his power. "Young master, you also want to avenge San Bao." San Bao was almost kicked to death by this fatty. San Bao saw that Lon did not mention her, so she quickly added. Lisa Schwan naturally wanted to avenge his sister. He went forward and picked up Lu Haojian, who was lying on the ground. Lu Haojian shouted in fear. "Don't hit me, don't hit me. I'll give you money, a lot of money. Don't hit me." Lisa Schwan could not be bothered with him. He used 10 dragon-subduing slaps on his fat face. Lisa Schwan's palms flew left and right. It was dazzling. Lu Haojian's head was twisted rapidly. Soon, his cheeks were swollen. His already fat face became even fatter. His face was even taller than the bridge of his nose. Lon Iron Egg, and Sam Bao were watching from the side. They were very satisfied. Lon waved her arms and jumped up. "Good hit, brother, good hit." Lisa Schwan slapped more than 10 times. He was tired and felt that it was meaningless. The main reason was that these people were too weak. They were not even as powerful as the big tiger on the mountain. If Lu Haojian heard Lisa Schwan's words, he would definitely vomit blood. If he was half as powerful as the tiger, would he just stand there and let you hit him? Lu Haojian's face was so swollen that he could no longer speak. Lisa Schwan picked him up with one hand and threw him in front of Iron Egg and San Bao. "Iron Egg, San Bao, how did he hit you just now? Give me 10 times the amount." "Young master, what happened to you?" A worried voice came from outside. Lisa Schwan looked and saw that it was Xiao Shi. Behind her was Wang Zhong. Xiao Shi saw that Lisa Schwan was covered in blood and was shocked. She quickly ran over and asked worriedly. Lisa Schwan waved his hand and said, "I'm fine. The blood on me is not mine." He then looked at Wang Zhong and said, "Uncle Wang, why are you here?" Wang Zhong was also worried. When he heard that the blood was not his, he was slightly relieved. He said, "Young master, we heard that something happened to young miss at Han Lijing's house, so we rushed over. Oh, I also saw a dead tiger at Han Lijing's house." Lisa Schwan nodded and said, "Uncle Wang, that tiger was killed by me. Lana is fine now." At this moment, a series of footsteps came from afar. Lisa Schwan turned his head to look and saw a chubby middle-aged man leading 50 or so servants to protect the courtyard. Surprisingly, the servant who had just escaped was among them. The group of people rushed over in an aggressive manner. These should be the reinforcements that Lu Haojian had called for. Li Zixuan sneered. Humph, they came the right time. I haven't finished venting my anger. Xiao Shi and Wang Zhong saw that there were so many people coming over aggressively. It was obvious that they did not come with good intentions. They were very worried. Wang Zhong could not help but say, "Young master, you should hide in the village first. I have already asked Xiao He to find Han Lijing. Everything will be fine when Han Lijing comes." Xiao Shi also quickly nodded in agreement. Iron Egg, Han Yushi, and Lan were not very worried. They had seen Li Zixuan's martial arts. They felt that even if Li Zixuan could not defeat so many people, he would definitely be able to hold on until the villagers came to help. With such a big commotion, the villagers would definitely notice it. Li Zixuan shook his head and said, "Uncle Wang, Xiao Shi, don't worry. These dozens of clowns will not be able to hurt me. Stand aside." After saying that, he took the initiative to go up to those people. Chapter 28. Li Zixuan walked a dozen steps towards a group of people and stopped when he was about 20 to 30 feet away from them. He crossed his arms and waited for them to come over. When the distance was about right, Li Zixuan shouted at the group of people, "Is Lu Shiren here? If you are, come out and say something. Today, I will turn you, Lu Shiren, into a dead man." Li Zixuan was also speechless at the Lu family's naming skills. The father was called Lu Shiren, and the son was called Lu Haojian. How uncultured! How scary! When Wang Zhong heard Li Zixuan call out Lu Shiren, he was slightly stunned. He was only concerned about his young master and young miss, so he didn't know who the other party was. At this time, he looked at Lu Haojian, who was lying on the ground with his face swollen. After looking at him for a long time, he recognized that he had seen this person before. His face was ashen. When the leader of the group of people saw Li Zixuan, a 14 to 15-year-old child, speak rudely, he was so angry that he shouted, "Where did this stinking child come from? Today, I will teach you a lesson on behalf of your parents. I will teach you how to behave. All of you go and beat him to death." This person was Lu Shiren. He was originally at home with the concubine he had just taken in, but he was interrupted by a servant. When he heard that his precious son had been beaten up in the Han family manner, he was shocked and angry. He put on his clothes and led all the servants and guards in the family to storm towards the Han family manor. When Li Zixuan saw that this person was so angry, he concluded that this was most likely Lu Shiren. When he heard his unpleasant words, he was furious. He didn't wait for the servants to come and took the initiative to attack. He was mainly afraid that so many people would hurt Lan and Yushi. Using the orchid butterfly steps, he flashed in front of Lu Shiren and fiercely punched his chin. Then he flew up and kicked his round stomach. Lu Shiren was like a heavy artillery shell, smashing into the group of servants behind him. The group of servants didn't even have time to dodge and were all injured. When Li Zixuan landed on the ground, his expression was not good. He originally wanted to kick the middle-aged fatty more than 10 meters away to intimidate these people, who knew that he underestimated Lu Shiren's weight and kicked the wrong place. At that time, when he kicked Lu Shiren's round belly, he used too much strength. Although he kicked Lu Shiren away, the rebound from Lu Shiren's belly almost sent him flying. He spun twice in the air before stabilizing his body and landing on the ground. Li Zixuan's expression turned ugly as he had almost failed to act tough. The servant who had gone back to report the news was horrified. It was so fast again. He thought it was a fluke that his young master was kicked away so fast. Now, he kicked away his master, who was obviously several tons heavier than his young master. Moreover, the speed was so fast that no one could react. At this moment, even if he was stupid, he knew that he had encountered a legendary martial arts master. At that moment, he didn't care about his master and those servants. He turned around and ran away, wailing in his heart, "Go back to your hometown. I'm not going to be a servant here in Chang'an anymore. Whoever falls in love with this god of killing can have him." Lu Shiren was in so much pain that his face turned the color of pig liver. There was still blood on his chin. After he landed on the ground, He was like a turtle that flipped its shell. He twisted his buttocks a few times but couldn't get up. This made the dozen servants under him suffer. Originally, when he smashed them, a few of their bones were broken. Now that Serene was twisting his buttocks and trying to get up, they instantly howled in pain. A few servants who were not injured rushed over and spent a lot of effort to pull their master up. Serene's face was in a mess. The hat on his head was long gone, and his hair was disheveled. Most importantly, his head was bald, and only his hair was around. Lan, who was watching from the side, couldn't help but giggle. Xiao Shi and Yushi also couldn't help but laugh. Serene was furious at this moment. Just as he was about to fly into a rage, he saw Wang Zhong. He was shocked and didn't bother to tidy up his appearance. He staggered over and said flatteringly, "Butler Wang, why are you here?" Wang Zhong's face was ashen. He pointed at Serene's nose and roared, "Why am I here? Serene, you have guts. Your son dared to bully my family's young miss, and you brought people to beat up my family's young master. You have guts. Just you wait, my master won't let you off." Serene was confused at this moment and said, "Ah, that young man just now was your family's young master?" Wang Zhong snorted and said, "What do you think?" Serene staggered back 2 steps when he heard this, and his face turned even paler. He had met Wang Zhong many times before. Back then, when he sold the Han family manor, he had contacted Wang Zhong. He naturally knew that the master Wang Zhong mentioned was someone he couldn't afford to offend. He was just a landlord in the countryside, but Li Jingma was a tycoon in Chang'an. He knew many high-ranking officials and dignitaries. He could crush the Liu family with just a finger. Just now, he heard Wang Zhong say that his bastard son bullied Li Jingma's daughter. "It's over, it's all over." Serene sat on the ground in despair. At this moment, there was a rush of footsteps in the village. Li Zishuan saw Xiao He and Han Lijing running over with a group of farmers holding hoes and machetes. Well, Li Zishuan also saw a fool holding a rolling pin. He couldn't help but feel speechless. Damn it, did you come to fight or to roll dough to make dumplings? Before this, Han Lijing had gathered the farmers and told them about the big deal that Li Zishuan had told him. When the farmers heard it, they couldn't believe that there was such a good thing. After confirming it over and over again, they thanked the master's family's young master and young miss for their kindness. At this moment, Xiao Yi hurriedly ran over and told Han Lijing that someone at the entrance of the village had caught the young miss. Han Lijing was furious when he heard this. A burly man with a full beard stood up and shouted, "Han Lijing, what are you waiting for? Kill them. The master has been so good to us. Not only did he reduce our rent, he even brought us such a business deal. Yet the young miss was caught here. We can't let down the master and Madam Li. Kill them. I old who will be the first to go. That's right, no matter who the other party is, kill them. I old Han will go too. Kill them, kill them. Count me Han Aaron." Instantly, the crowd was enraged. They all shouted that they wanted to save the young miss. The master's family had always been good to the Han village. This time, they had brought them such a good business deal. They were grateful from the bottom of their hearts. Now that the young miss was in trouble at the Han village's good days would be ruined. How could they tolerate this? All right, our Han village doesn't have any cowards. If they dare to bully us and want to ruin our good days, we will fight it out with them. At this moment, Han Lijing stood up and shouted, "Fight it out, fight it out." Han Lijing led these angry villagers, picked up the farming tools beside them, and the group of people majestically charged towards the threshing field. When Han Lijing arrived at the threshing field, he saw from afar that the young miss was still safe and sound. His heart was slightly relieved. When he saw Li Zishuan covered in blood, his heart was filled with fear. He quickly walked to Li Zishuan's side and anxiously asked, young master, are you all right?" Li Zishuan waved his hand and smiled. "Uncle Han, I'm fine. The blood on my body isn't mine. It's just that I came late and caused your family's Iron Egg to be injured." Han Lijing looked at Iron Egg and saw that his face was only a little swollen. He said, "It's good that young master and young miss are fine. Otherwise, this Han would have died 10,000 times. Iron Egg being beaten up is fine. That stinky brat's skin is thick. When Lisa Schwan heard this, the corner of his mouth twitched. He silently mourned for Iron Egg. Was this Iron Egg's father really his own? At this moment, Han Lijing held his sickle and walked in front of Lu Shiren. Facing the dozens of servants beside Lu Shiren, he was not the least bit afraid. Thinking that if the young master had come a little later, the young miss might have been in trouble. The more he thought about it, the more scared he became. A monstrous, murderous aura filled the air. This was the murderous aura that he gained from killing a mountain of corpses and a sea of blood. At this moment, he really wanted to kill Lu Shiren. The Han family manor had finally welcomed such a kind-hearted master. If something happened to the young master and young miss here, the consequences of the Han family manor could be imagined. Han Lijing coldly said, "Lu Shiren, what do you mean? When you were in the Han family manor, you maliciously bullied us villagers. Now that you've left, you came back to beat up our young master and young miss. Do you really think that the people of the Han family manor are made of mud? Do you believe that I won't kill you?" After he finished speaking, he placed the sickle in his hand in front of Lu Shiren's throat. At this moment, Lu Shiren's heart was filled with fear and grievance. He brought so many people here, but before he could even say a few words to Lisa Schwan, he was already beaten up. Who was the one bullying who? Kill him, kill him. The surrounding villagers all waved the farming tools in their hands and roared angrily. Lu Shiren was scared out of his wits by the angry roars of the crowd in front of him. He fearfully said to Han Lijing, "I was wrong. I didn't know that this person was your young master. Don't kill me. Please spare my life." A trace of warm liquid flowed out from the bottom of his trousers. He was so scared that he actually peed his pants. The surrounding servants also did not expect that the villagers that they used to bully so casually would be so fierce today. They were so scared that they did not care about their master and young master anymore and scattered in all directions. Han Lijing pressed down with his other hand, indicating for everyone to be quiet. He said to Lisa Schwan, "Young master, how do you want to deal with them? If young master wants to kill them, I, old Han, will do it myself. After that, I, old Han, will go to the government to take the blame." Han Yushi was a little touched at this moment, but she was also a little worried. She was really worried that Lisa Schwan would let her father take the blame after killing them. However, this was her father's decision, and she could not stop it. Before Lisa Schwan could speak, a big man with a full beard stood out and said, "No, young master, let me do it. I, old Hu, will take the blame. I, old Hu, have long disliked this Lu Shiren." The villagers immediately stood out and shouted, "Let me do it. I will take the blame." Lisa Schwan looked at the scene in front of him and was a little touched. This was the simple people of Tang Empire. If you were good to them, they would repay you tenfold or 100-fold, even at the expense of their own lives. However, he did not want to kill the father and son of the Lu family. It was not worth it. He wanted to make them suffer a fate worse than death. Lisa Schwan pressed down with his hands and waited for everyone to be quiet. Lisa Schwan pushed the sickle away from Lu Shiren's throat and said to Han Lijing, "Uncle Han, even if I want to kill them, I won't let you take the blame. Moreover, I don't want them to die. I want them to suffer a fate worse than death. Uncle Han, get someone to break the father and son's hands and feet, then send them back." Han Yushi looked at him gratefully when she heard that. She thought to herself that she had not misjudged him. Young master was not that kind of selfish person. Lisa Schwan said to Lu Shiren, "Lu Shiren, if you're not convinced, you can go to the government and sue me. I, Lisa Schwan, will accompany you to the end." After saying that, he ignored the father and son of the Lu family who had fainted from fright and brought Lan Han Yushi, and the others back to Han Lijing's house. Such a bloody scene was not suitable for them to see. The rest was left to Han Lijing and the villagers. Chapter 29. Wow, what a big tiger! Lisa Schwan and the others returned to the Han family's courtyard. Lan saw the big tiger at the door and was shocked. She screamed and immediately hid behind Lisa Schwan. Lisa Schwan patted Lan head and said gently, "Lan don't be afraid. That tiger is dead." Lan heard this and stuck her head out from behind Lisa Schwan. After making sure that the tiger would not move, she slowly walked forward and observed the tiger. Iron Egg was also very curious. He ran over and touched the tiger with Lan. Li Zixuan did not care about them and entered the house with Han Yushi, Xiao He, and Xiao Shi. Young master, I'll go boil some water. You can take a bath later. I'll bring my father's clothes for you to change into. Han Yushi suggested when she saw Li Zixuan covered in blood. Li Zixuan looked at his dirty body. It was indeed time to take a bath. If he went home like this, his mother would faint from fright. He nodded and said, "Okay, then I'll have to trouble Yushi. Shall he go and help Yushi?" Xiao He had already noticed that the young master had changed the way he addressed Han Yushi from Miss Han to Yushi. The little girl looked at the young master suspiciously. When she heard the young master instructing her, she quickly agreed. She did not dare to ask the young master face to face. Moreover, how could a servant casually ask about the young master's feelings? After a while, Han Yushi and Xiao He carried a bucket of hot water into the house. Then, Han Yushi handed Li Zixuan a set of clothes and said, "Young master, please take a bath in my room." "Young master, you can wash in my father's room. These are my father's clothes when he was young. They might not fit you well. Young master, please wear them first." Li Zixuan looked at her beautiful little face and smiled. "Okay, Yushi, it's been hard on you. You must have been frightened today." At this moment, there were only the two of them in the room. It was a little ambiguous. Han Yushi blushed and said, "Young master, what are you saying?" "Young master, quickly take a bath. Yushi will go out first." After saying that, he hurriedly ran out of the door. Li Zixuan closed the door, took off his clothes, and sat in the bathtub. He shook his head and said to himself, "I didn't ask you to take a bath with me. Why did you run away so quickly? Could it be that this young master is not handsome? This shouldn't be the case." Li Zixuan finished showering, put on his clothes, picked up the bathwater, walked out of the door, and poured it out. Then, he walked back into the house. Han Yushi happened to see Li Zixuan wearing clothes that were obviously one size bigger than his body. He looked quite funny as he walked. She couldn't help but laugh. Li Zixuan turned around when he heard the sound. He knew what Han Yushi was laughing about. There was nothing he could do. He was only 14 years old. He would definitely look big in Han Lijing's clothes. So be it if she laughed. It was a good opportunity to admire the smile of a beauty. Han Yushi was shy from his stare. She quickly stopped smiling, and her little face was a little red. She went forward to help Li Zixuan tidy up his collar. As Li Zixuan was taller than her, she was tiptoeing and tidying up the collar behind Li Zixuan's neck with both hands. This posture was very ambiguous. Li Zixuan looked at her lively eyes, white nose, and red lips. His Adam's apple bobbed a few times. He was very tempted. Han Yushi saw Li Zixuan staring at her. She smelled the strong masculine scent on his body and thought about how he flew over to save her from the tiger's mouth on the mountain. For a moment, she was also a little moved. Li Zixuan was about to lower his head and kiss her when he heard a child's voice. "Wow, brother, sister Yushi, what are you playing?" "Lana wants to play too." Lan, finished touching the tiger and was looking around for her brother. When she came to the room, she saw her brother and sister Yushi hugging each other. She shouted excitedly. When Han Yushi heard that, she immediately pushed Li Zixuan away as if she had been electrocuted. She retreated to the corner and blushed. She lowered her head and did not speak. Li Zixuan was helpless. He said to Lan, "Your sister Yushi is helping brother tidy up his collar." "Lan, why didn't you knock when you came in? Aren't you afraid of the door demon?" When Han Yushi heard Li Zixuan mention the door demon, she raised her head and looked at him curiously. She did not know what story was inside. Lan said a little fearfully, but brother didn't close the door. "Do I have to knock?" Li Zixuan was stunned. He had made a mistake. He had actually forgotten to close the door. After a long time, Han Lijing finally came back. Wang Zhong and San Bao followed behind. Li Zixuan did not ask how Han Lijing had handled it. He stood up and said goodbye to Han Lijing. "Uncle Han, sorry for disturbing you today. It's getting late. We should go back." "Oh, right. You need money to buy the mountain fruits." "Uncle Wang, how much money do we bring this time?" "Young master, we only brought 10 strings of cash." "Okay, then give it all to Uncle Han. If Uncle Han doesn't have enough money in the future, you can ask Uncle Wang for more. This money can be deducted from the money from selling alcohol in the future, Lisa Xuan said. Han Lijing did not expect his young master to be so thoughtful. He took the money and said gratefully, "Thank you for your trust, young master." Lisa Xuan waved his hand and looked at Sanbao. "Sanbao, how are you? Can you still walk? I'll give you a raise when we go back this time." Previously, Wang Zhong had brought Sanbao to the village doctor for some simple treatment. After such a long time, she had recovered. When she heard her young master's question, she felt warm in her heart. "Young master, Sanbao is fine. Sanbao is strong." After saying that, he even showed off his biceps. Lisa Xuan smiled and said, "Okay, then let's go. Lan'er, let's go home." Coming. Lan'er ran over. Lisa Xuan clasped his hands and said to Han Lijing, "Uncle Han, we'll meet again someday." He turned back and looked at Han Yushi deeply. Lisa Xuan would be lying if he said that he was not moved by this gentle, brave, and fairy-like girl. Although they had only known each other for a day, Han Yushi had left an impression on him that could not be erased for the rest of his life. Lisa Xuan waved at her and said, "Yushi, goodbye." After saying that, he turned around and prepared to leave. Han Yushi silently watched Lisa Xuan's back from the side. She was very reluctant to part with him, but so what? God could not help her make him stay. Perhaps God had heard the call in her heart. At this moment, the wind and clouds suddenly changed. A muffled thunder came from the sky. Wang Zhong looked at the dark clouds in the west and said worriedly, "Young master, I'm afraid that the rain is not light. We can barely make it back by horse, but it's very dangerous for a carriage to take the mountain road in this weather." Lisa Xuan remembered the bumpy mountain road when he came back. He also felt that it was dangerous to take the mountain road in the rain. He hesitated and joked to Han Lijing, "Uncle Han, it seems that we have to keep guests in this weather. We can only trouble Uncle Han for one more night. We'll leave tomorrow when the rain stops." After saying that, he was secretly happy. Was it because he could stay with Han Yushi for one more night? He could not explain it. Han Lijing laughed heartily and said, "Young master, what are you saying? It's my honor that you can stay in my house. I still need to trouble Uncle Han with one more thing. Uncle Han, find a strong man with good skills to go to Chang and City and tell my mother that I'll be back tomorrow. I'm afraid that my mother will be worried." Lisa Xuan suddenly thought of his mother and quickly told Han Lijing, "Yes, young master, don't worry. I'll arrange it." Han Lijing nodded and replied. Han Yushi was still sad about parting. When she heard them talk, she was happy. She thanked God in her heart for letting Lisa Xuan stay. She even thought that it would be great if the rain never stopped. Chapter 30. After dinner, Han Lijing brought Iron Egg, Sanbao, and Wang Zhong out. There were only 3 rooms in his house, and they definitely couldn't fit so many people. He had no choice but to bring the 3 of them to another house to sleep for the night. He had already made arrangements with those families. When they heard that they were the young master's people, they welcomed them with open arms. The rain outside was getting heavier and heavier. Lisa Xuan tossed and turned, unable to fall asleep as he listened to the pitter-patter of the rain. Moreover, it was too early now. It was almost 6 o'clock in the evening in the modern world. In his previous life, he would only sleep at 11 or 12 o'clock at night. However, in this era, there were no cell phones or computers. There was nothing else to do other than sleep at night. Brother, are you asleep?" Lan'er knocked on the door. Lisa Xuan got up and opened the door. Lan'er squeezed in agilely. Lisa Xuan looked at her and said, "Lan'er, why aren't you asleep?" Lan'er and Han Yushi slept in one room, while Xiao He and Xiao She slept in another room. Lan'er came over and held her brother's hand. "Brother, we can't sleep. Why don't you come over and tell us a story?" Lisa Xuan was puzzled. "You guys?" Lan'er nodded. "That's right. Sister Yushi, Sister Xiao He, and Sister Xiao She can't sleep. We're all in Sister Yushi's room waiting for you to come over and tell us a story." Lisa Xuan was really tempted. He also wanted to go to Han Yushi's room to take a look. To be exact, he wanted to go to Han Yushi's room to see how charming Han Yushi looked when she was lying on the bed. Just thinking about it made him look forward to it. Lana didn't wait for her brother to agree. She pulled her brother's hand and dragged him out of the room. Lisa Schwan came to Han Yushi's room. A faint girl's fragrance seeped into his nostrils. Lisa Schwan couldn't help but greedily take in a breath. The three girls in the room quickly stood up and greeted him. Young master. Lisa Schwan nodded at them and then began to look around Han Yushi's boudoir. Although the furnishings in the room were not luxurious, they were placed very neatly. In addition to the dressing table, there was also a small table in the room. Han Yushi naturally wouldn't lie on the bed and wait for him to come over like he had just fantasized. In fact, Han Yushi didn't want Lisa Schwan to come to her room, but she couldn't stand the coaxing and pestering of Lan and the two little maidservants. Moreover, she was quite curious about what story Lisa Schwan wanted to tell them, so she agreed to those maidservants half-heartedly. At this moment, the three girls and Lan were sitting around a small table, waiting for Lisa Schwan to tell them a story. Lisa Schwan looked around. There were no more stools. His heart skipped a beat. He sat on Han Yushi's fragrant couch without any trace of politeness. When it was time to make a move, he had to make a move. There were no extra stools in this room. Han Yushi had no reason to blame him for sitting on the bed. Of course, he had to take advantage of this. When Han Yushi saw Lisa Schwan sitting on her bed, she blushed shyly. She also realized that there were no other stools in the room. She couldn't help but blame herself for being too careless. Lana didn't notice the small movements of the two. When she saw her brother sit down, she said excitedly, "Brother, quickly tell me." Lana was almost taken away by bad people today. "Brother, quickly tell Lan journey to the west to calm Lan down." When Han Yushi and the other two heard this, they couldn't help but laugh. No one had ever taken the initiative to ask others to calm them down. Lisa Schwan was also very speechless. Lan lively and excited appearance didn't look like she was frightened at all. Han Yushi was frightened on the mountain today. Since they were here, the story still had to be told. He shook his head and said, "Lan let's not talk about Journey to the West tonight. Your sister Yushi hasn't heard of many of the previous stories. Today, let's talk about another story." Lana wasn't disappointed. Anyway, since her brother made it, it must be the best. At this moment, she shouted even more excitedly, "Okay, okay." When Han Yushi saw that Lisa Schwan had to think about her even when telling a story, she felt very sweet in her heart. Lisa Schwan looked at Xiao He and Xiao Shi and said, "Xiao He, Xiao Shi, you have heard the first part of this story before." When Xiao He heard this, she immediately remembered that afternoon when a young master said that no one could tell that she was a man dressed as a woman. Her face suddenly turned red. She swore that she would definitely not mention the question that afternoon again today. Lisa Schwan didn't tease her anymore. He looked at Han Yushi and said, "The story that we're going to tell today is called Liang Shanbua and Zhu Yingtai." It was said that during the Eastern Jin Dynasty, there was a woman named Zhu Yingtai by the Zhu family's village in Shanyu County, Zhejiang Province. She was beautiful and smart. She had been learning poetry from her brother since she was young. She admired Ban Zhao and Kai Wenji's talent and learning. She only hated that her family didn't have a good teacher. She wanted to go to Hangzhou to study. Lisa Schwan used his own words to tell them the plot that he saw from the TV series in his previous life. Although the words weren't beautiful, the story was beautiful and touching. As Lisa Schwan told the story, Han Yushi, Xiao He, and Xiao Shi were all immersed in the story. Zhu Yingtai disguised herself as a man to study. Liang Shanbua didn't find out that she was a woman after sleeping with her for 2 years. Zhu Yingtai returned to her hometown to visit her relatives and was forced to marry by the Ma family. With the story's twists and turns, the hearts of the three girls rose and fell like a boat on the sea. Very quickly, Lisa Schwan reached the climax of the story. Zhu Yingtai's bridal sedan was carried halfway when a gust of wind suddenly blew. The people carrying the sedan couldn't move anymore. At this time, the servant girl told Zhu Yingtai that Liang Shanbua's grave was in front of them. Zhu Yingtai didn't care about other people stopping her and walked out of the sedan. She insisted on going to Liang Shanbua's grave to mourn. Zhu Yingtai came to Liang Shanbua's grave and cried loudly. She was in so much pain that she wanted to die. She threw herself onto the grave. In a split second, lightning flashed and thunder rumbled. The wind and rain raged. A big crack suddenly appeared in the grave. Zhu Yingtai shouted Liang Shambua's name and jumped into the grave. Then, the grave automatically closed. After a while, the rain stopped. The clouds parted and a rainbow appeared in the sky. A pair of beautiful butterflies flew up from the grave and danced around the grave. People said that this pair of butterflies was Liang Shambua and Zhu Yingtai. When they heard the part where Liang Shambua and Zhu Yingtai turned into butterflies, Xiao He and Xiao, she'd both burst into tears. Han Yushi's eyes were wet. She looked at Li Zixuan with a complicated expression. She thought, although Zhu Yingtai and Liang Shambua's love life was bumpy, they had lived happily together for 2 years. Although they didn't have the same quilt, they died in the same cave in the end. Wasn't that a kind of happiness? However, her status was so different from the young masters. Could they really be together in the end? After Li Zixuan finished telling the story, he stood up and said, "All right, it's late. Let's go to bed early." Lanner said unhappily, "Brother, the story you told today wasn't good." Lanner didn't understand love, so she naturally felt that this story wasn't as good as Journey to the West. Li Zixuan smiled and said, "Then I'll tell Lanner Journey to the West tomorrow. It's time to sleep now." He turned his head and waved his hand at Han Yushi and said with a smile, "Yushi, rest early." Han Yushi's mind was still in the story. She forced a smile and said, "Young master, you should rest early too." Chapter 31. The next morning, Li Zixuan woke up from his sleep. He pushed open the window and found that the rain that had been raining all night had stopped. The fresh smell of the soil after the rain hit him in the face. He immediately felt refreshed. After practicing the Sutra of Supreme Mystery for a while, Li Zixuan walked out of the room. In the front room, Han Lijun, Wang Zhong, and the others had returned and were chatting. Li Zixuan went forward to greet them and went to wash up. After eating the breakfast that Han Yushi had carefully prepared, Li Zixuan said goodbye to Han Lijun in the yard. "Uncle Han, sorry for disturbing you these 2 days. Uncle Han, please pay attention to the business. If you have any problems, please find Uncle Wang or go directly to Chong and find me. I'll be waiting for your fruit wine in Chang'an. Young master, don't worry. I'll take care of the fruit wine. The road is slippery after the rain. Young master, please be careful." "Well, it's okay." Li Zixuan turned around and looked at Han Yushi, who was leaning against the door frame and silently watching him. This girl had noticed that her eyes were red since she saw her in the morning. Could it be that the story she told last night was too sad and she cried all night? He was also reluctant to part with his beautiful girl, but he had to go back. This was not his home. Li Zixuan actually enjoyed the quiet and elegant feeling when talking to Han Yushi, but he didn't know what Han Yushi thought of him. Maybe she had a little affection for him. He had a lot to say to her at this moment, but it was obviously not the right time. Thousands of words turned into a sigh in the end. "Yushi, take care." After that, he turned around and left with the group. Back home, Li Zixuan was dragged by his mother to enjoy her mother's love. He also told his mother about the purchase of the fruit wine. Mrs. Li didn't care much about the business. Since her son felt that it could make money, she would certainly support him. She gave Li Zixuan 1,000 strings of cash for him to use first. As for his father, his mother would talk to his mother. Li Zixuan was very happy to receive 1,000 strings of cash from the chairman of his family. It was good to be a rich second generation. If he liked a business, he could just ask his mother for money to invest. It was not like the time travel novels he read in his previous life. Some protagonists traveled to ancient times and had no money. They had to work hard to make glass and perfume to get their first venture capital. Li Zixuan said that it was too brain-intensive. He didn't want to do it for the time being. His family was already so rich. He didn't need to invent those inventions. What he needed to do now was to think of ways to spend money. A few days ago, his mother was still encouraging him to be a prodigal son. He had a long way to go. When he arrived at the West Court, he was about to go back to the study to plan the modification of the fruit wine when he found Lan, waiting for him in the side hall of the West Court. Lana, what's in the thing you're holding? Li Zishuan pointed at a thick bamboo tube in Lan Er's hand and asked. This is Lan Er's general, Wei Qing. He's amazing. Brother, let me show you. Lan Er handed over the bamboo tube in her hand, as if she was presenting a treasure. Li Zishuan was puzzled. Wei Qing? What the hell? He took the bamboo tube and lifted the lid slightly. When he looked inside, he saw a green locust. Only then did he remember that the source of the conflict in the threshing field of the Han family village yesterday was the few of them fighting the locust. He didn't expect Lan Er to name this locust Wei Qing. Li Zishuan couldn't help but find it funny. However, Li Zishuan's smile froze on his face before it could bloom. Then, his expression changed slightly. The way he looked at Wei Qing became a little uncertain. Li Zishuan didn't study the history of the Tang Dynasty in detail in his previous life. However, he still knew some of the major events that happened in the Tang Dynasty. Some of them were from novels, and some were from television dramas. Li Zishuan remembered that in the second year of the Jingguan era, the Tang Dynasty had an unprecedented locust plague. At that time, the locusts covered the sky and swept across the entire Guanzhong plain. The locusts covered the sky and poured down in torrents. Everywhere they passed, the land was barren. Even the trees and weeds couldn't escape from the locusts, not to mention the crops. Last year, Li Ergang and Shelley of the Turks had signed the humiliating Wei River Pact precisely to buy time for the Great Tang to breathe. The people of the Great Tang had just welcomed the peace that they had longed for. Who would have thought that they would have to face this apocalyptic disaster? In his previous life, Li Zishuan saw on some forums that when the locusts came, there were rumors among the people that this was God's punishment for Li Ergang killing his brothers and imprisoning his father to seize the throne. Li Ergang couldn't defend himself. The history books recorded, Taizong entered the garden to inspect the crops. When he saw the locusts, he plucked a few of them and cursed. Man's life is the grain. If you eat it, you will harm the people. The people have sinned. You have spirit, but when you eat my heart, you will not harm the people. When he was about to swallow the locusts, he admonished him to the left and right. I am afraid it will become a disease. You must not. Taizong said, I hope to remove the disaster. Why should I avoid the disease? When Li Zishuan saw this, he was quite shocked. It was not without reason that Li Er had become an eternal emperor. His breadth of mind, his bearing, and his charisma were things that ordinary people could not hope to achieve. Li Zishuan remembered that under the post, there were some keyboard warriors who commented that Li Ergang swallowed the locust for show, to show that he loved the people like his own children. Li Zishuan snorted at this. Li Ergang swallowed the locust despite the danger. No matter what his purpose was, he was worthy of respect. Li Zishuan asked himself if he was himself, he wouldn't dare to swallow the locusts. Although the Tang Dynasty was beginning to show its prosperity, with the current foundation of the Tang Dynasty, it obviously couldn't withstand this catastrophe. Once the locusts came, starving people would be everywhere. There might even be a tragedy of people swapping their children for food. Then the question was, before the locusts came, what could he do for this era? Although he hadn't been in this world for long, there were already many people who cared about him and the people he cared about. For example, his family, Han Lijing, Han Yushi, and the simple and adorable villagers of the Han family village. At this moment, he realized that he had fallen in love with this era and the people of the Tang Dynasty. Brother, Lan noticed that Li Zishuan was staring at her, Wei Qing, without moving. She pushed his arm. Oh, Lan go play with Xiao He and Xiao Shi first. I have something to do now. I will tell you a story tonight. Li Zishuan was interrupted by Lan and said to Lan, oh, then you must remember to tell Lan a story tonight. Lan was a little unhappy. She wanted to come over to show off her invincible general, Wei Qing, to her brother, but now that her brother seemed to have something to do, she could only leave. Inside the house, Li Zishuan was alone, frowning. He was thinking about how the main characters of the novels who had transmigrated to the Tang Dynasty solved the locust problem. He remembered that some people had brought potatoes with them when they transmigrated and promoted potato farming in the Tang Dynasty. This helped the people of the Tang Dynasty survive the locusts. This was a good idea, but he had transmigrated. Before he transmigrated, he couldn't have brought potatoes with him. What should he do? Should he tell the heir directly and ask him to prepare in advance? No. First of all, he couldn't even see Lier now. Even if he saw him and told him, he wouldn't believe him. Instead, he would be charged with the crime of misleading the public. Secondly, even if Lier believed him, other than stockpiling food in advance, there were limited ways to do so. Li Zixuan rubbed his head in frustration. After thinking for a long time, he still couldn't think of a practical solution. Forget it. Let's think about it slowly. After all, there was still more than a year before the locusts. Chapter 32. This morning, Li Zixuan was practicing his sword on the lawn of the West Courtyard. Yes, he was practicing his sword. Not only did spiritual masterling Su teach him internal strength, he also taught him sword skills. Taoist sword skills were quite diverse, and there were many powerful sword skills handed down from generation to generation. But spiritual master Ling Su was afraid that he would bite off more than he could chew, so he only taught him one sword skill, which was what Li Zixuan was practicing now. It was called the 9 Tai Xian swords. 9 swords didn't refer to 9 swords, but this sword skill contained 9 consecutive sword moves. The 9 Tai Xian swords was a supreme sword skill derived from Li Zixuan's internal strength. When it was used, the 9 consecutive moves were like a violent storm. The 9 moves connected in an endless stream, making people unable to cope. Moreover, each move would superimpose on the power of the last move. Under the superimposition of layers of power, the last move would be accompanied by the sound of thunder. Its speed would be like lightning and very difficult to block. After Li Zixuan obtained the memories of this body, he studied this sword skill in his heart for several days. As a modern person, Li Zixuan used to scoff at internal strength sword skills and the like. But after obtaining the memories of this body and looking at this sword skill again, he naturally had some understanding in his heart. This feeling was very magical. The 9 Tai Xian swords were: first sword riding wind, second sword fleeting swan, third sword treading snow, fourth sword breaking waves, fifth sword leaving dust, sixth sword flowing cloud, seventh sword phantom, eighth sword returning to origin, and ninth sword rushing thunder. The 9 sword skills matched the 9 levels of the Tai Xian Sutra. With Li Zixuan's current power, he could only use the first 5 moves of the 9 Tai Xian swords. But this was already very powerful. According to his master, with his current cultivation, no one in the younger generation in Jianghu could match him. Unless he met a reclusive master like his master, his life was not in danger under other circumstances. Spiritual master Ling Su had already practiced the 9th sword rushing thunder when he was alive. According to him, when he used the 9 swords in succession, even a great grandmaster expert could only hold back his hatred. But using the 9 swords in succession consumed a lot of energy. After using the 9 swords, he basically collapsed. Currently, the commonly recognized strength levels in Jianghu were Qi drawing, body tempering, Qi forming, master, and great master. According to his master's introduction, there were only 3 martial grandmasters in the world today. His master was naturally one of them, and he was a peak existence. The other 2 were Shaolin Abbot Xian Kong and Tujue Imperial Advisor Wu Jie. As for the number of grandmasters, there are no clear records, but his master estimated that there were only a few dozen grandmasters in the world. In his memory, the current martial arts world wasn't as exaggerated as what was written in modern cultivation novels. Even a great grandmaster expert couldn't extend their lifespan by several hundred years. At most, they wouldn't get sick easily. Although his master had been a great grandmaster for many years, he couldn't escape from old age, sickness, and death. He passed away at the age of 125. In short, martial arts could only make people stronger and more agile. It would not allow people to transcend the category of humans and become immortals. They were just a little stronger than ordinary people. However, even a great grandmaster expert would not be willing to fight with a small army. Moreover, A great grandmaster wasn't an invincible existence. The gap between great grandmasters wasn't very large. If a great grandmaster was besieged by a dozen great grandmasters, he would still die. Li Zixuan's predecessor had reached the 5th layer of the Taishan Sutra a year ago. Currently, he was an expert at the peak of qi forming. When he reached the 6th layer of the Taishan Sutra, he would enter the ranks of great grandmasters. The Taishan Sutra had 10 layers, but the Taishan 9 swords only had 9 sword moves. In his memory, his predecessor had asked his master why. Spiritual Master Ling Su only said that in the 1,000-year history of Taoism, no one had practiced the Taishan Sutra to the 10th layer, so at present, there was only the Taishan 9 swords. At this moment, in the west courtyard, Li Zixuan's figure changed. The 5 major sword moves, wind riding, graceful grace, snow treading, wave breaking, and dust parting, were used one after another. The grass around him swirled. Even the peach blossoms that had just bloomed on the 2 peach trees next to him were swept away by the strong wind brought by his sword qi. For a moment, the courtyard was filled with sword light, and the falling petals were a riot. It was very beautiful. Wow, brother is so powerful. Lan also wants to learn swordsmanship. Lan saw her brother flying around in the field with sword light shining in all directions. He was like a peerless sword immortal. She jumped and jumped around excitedly, shouting that she also wanted to learn this handsome swordsmanship. Xiao He and Xiao Shi's eyes were also filled with extraordinary splendor. They knew that their young master knew martial arts, but they didn't expect him to be so powerful, especially when their young master was dancing with the sword. He was so handsome that their hearts were beating wildly. After practicing these 5 sword moves, Li Zixuan was also sweating slightly. He took the silk handkerchief that Xiao Shi handed over and wiped the sweat on his forehead. Then he said to Lan, practicing martial arts is very tough. Do you really want to learn? Li Zixuan didn't want to teach his sister martial arts because it was too troublesome. This girl was obviously only enthusiastic for a short period of time. Moreover, to practice martial arts to his level, one must suffer a lot. He couldn't bear for his sister to suffer. Yes, Lana wants to learn. Lana is not afraid of suffering. Lan seemed to be very determined as she nodded her head. She was just captivated by her brother's handsome swordsmanship and really wanted to learn this swordsmanship. But to learn this swordsmanship, you have to wake up at 3 in the morning to practice. Moreover, you have to continue practicing regardless of whether it's winter or summer. When that time comes, our cute little Lan will become a Tang girl. Lan, do you still want to learn? Li Zixuan said in distress. Lan was a little hesitant. Which girl didn't want to be beautiful? Although Lana wasn't even 7 years old, this little girl had already started to want to be beautiful. She often asked Xiao Shi for advice on how to dress up. When she heard that practicing martial arts was so scary and that she had to get tanned, Lana was a little scared. Although the swordsmanship was handsome, she would become ugly if she got tanned. No matter how good the swordsmanship was, it was useless. Seeing that Lan was a little scared, Li Zixuan was a little proud. Just as he was about to turn around and return to his room, he heard Lan shouting, "No, smelly brother, you are lying. You wake up at 3 in the morning every day. You wake up later than Lan. Also, brother, your face is so white. You didn't get tanned at all." After Lana reacted, she immediately grabbed onto Li Zixuan and didn't let go. Damn, I didn't expect to be used as a model by my sister because I slept in. Li Zixuan was a little embarrassed. He could only justify himself. He lowered his body and looked into Lana's eyes. He tried to make his eyes look more sincere. Li Zixuan brewed his emotions and said to Lan, "Cough, cough. Lan, your elder brother is one of those rare martial arts geniuses that only appear once in 100 years. It only took me 8 years of hard work to learn this martial art. It's very difficult for others to learn it as quickly as I do. As for why I didn't get tan in the past 8 years, it can only be said that there is a type of skin that belongs to the natural beauty type. No matter how much you get tanned, you won't get tanned. Do you understand?" As he spoke, Li Zixuan was a little embarrassed to continue. Damn, I have never seen such a shameless person. At this moment, Lan'er looked at Li Zixuan in surprise. It was as if she was meeting him for the first time. Her wide eyes were very cute. Lan'er held back for a long time, but she still said what was in her heart. "Brother, why are you so shameless? Lan'er is embarrassed to be your sister." Li Zixuan was speechless. There was silence all around. Then there were two giggles. Xiaohe and Xiao, she saw that their young master had failed to fool around in front of and finally couldn't help but laugh out loud. Li Zixuan was instantly attacked. His old face darkened. He glared at the two young maidservants who were gloating at his misfortune. He then looked at Lan, and said sadly, "My heart hurts. Little sister, I have always been so nice to you. Is it really okay for you to insult me like this?" Hearing her brother's strange words, Lan was dumbfounded. Just as she was about to ask, she saw San Bao walking over. "Young master, the eldest son of the Chung family is waiting for you in the front hall. He said that he has something to talk to you about. Master is accompanying him at the side. He wants you to hurry over." San Bao came over and bowed to Li Zixuan. "Chung Chumo, why is that guy looking for me? Does he want me to treat him to my chicken again?" Li Zixuan shuddered when he remembered the resentful look shopkeeper Lu gave Chung Chumo last time. He hoped that it wasn't like that. "Lan, go play with Xiao He and Xiao Shi. Brother has something to do and will leave first." After Li Zixuan finished speaking to his sister, he turned around and rushed to the front hall. P.S. Regarding this book, Swordsman would like to say that the main plot of this book is still history. The addition of some martial arts is just to let the main character act cool in the Tang Dynasty. This book doesn't give the main character a heaven-defying system, but it's not too much to give him some martial arts. Furthermore, the Tang Dynasty originally had a culture of chivalry throughout the country. From the Li Tang Dynasty's rebellion against the Sui Dynasty, to the Xuanwu Gate incident of Li Shimin, and then to the Tang Dynasty's foreign wars, there were the shadows of chivalrous men in the Jianghu. It was not nonsense to add elements of chivalry into the book. This book will use history as the main plot and describe the magnificent history. There will also be some chivalrous and tender feelings in the Jianghu. Martial arts is not the same as fantasy. There won't be any nonsense like summoning the wind and summoning the rain. Wanderers were a respected profession in the Tang Dynasty. Without wanderers, the Li Tang Dynasty would not be able to overthrow the Sui Dynasty. Li Shimin would not be able to rely on a coup d'etat to take the throne. After the Tang Dynasty was unified, wanderers started to join the army to prove their worth. Many wanderers walked the path of joining the army, making contributions and receiving titles. Chang, in return to wanderers, Luoyang was rich and talented. Jade Sword and Floating Cloud Ride, Golden Saddle and Moonbow. Fighting Cock, Overweight Bay, Riding Horse to Guangdong. Sunbin waits from afar. Guojie secretly communicates. Without 1,000 gold titles, who would talk about 10,000 miles of merit. The general descends from the sky, riding into the clouds. The fire of the beacon is like the moon at night. The aura of the soldiers is like a rainbow at dawn. Running amok with friends, carrying feathers to join the army. Dragon banners dim the fog. Bird formations sweep up the cold wind. Chasing to the Hanhai Pass. After the battle, the mountains are empty. Returning to thank the Son of Heaven. Why not ride a horse? One of the 4 heroes of the Tang Dynasty, Lu Xiaoling's journey to the youth field was the most realistic portrayal of the Tang Dynasty wanderers joining the army to defend the country. It reproduced the heroic scenes of wanderers fighting on the border, fighting on horseback, and not fearing death. Apart from that, wanderers were also a spiritual idol with symbolic meaning in the Tang Dynasty society. In the strong and prosperous Tang Dynasty, the chivalrous spirit of the people who worshipped martial arts was in line with the spirit of times. Hence, it was not surprising that there were many wanderers in the Tang Dynasty. Adding martial arts elements in this book was also reasonable. As for the division of martial arts in this book, it was purely made up. Scholars should not take it seriously with the swordsman. Chapter 33. In the front hall, Li Jingma was chatting with Qingchumo. He was quite happy that his son was able to make friends with the son of Duke Lu. It wasn't that he liked to cling to the rich and powerful, but that his son had Cheng Chumo as a friend. His son's safety would be much better in the future. However, Cheng Chumo felt like he was sitting on pins and needles. Although Li Jingma was only a merchant, he had a wide range of knowledge and experience, and his style of conversation was quite good. Cheng Chumo was an old man with a rough temperament, and was not suitable for such a scholarly conversation. "Nephew, is Duke Lu still in good health?" Li Jingma asked gently. In fact, he was also anxious. After chatting with Cheng Chumo for so long, he was almost done with all the polite greetings. Why was that brat still not here? He was really itching for a beating. He would teach him a lesson later. Cheng Chumo tried his best to pretend to be a well-read and modest young master. He replied politely, "Thank you for your concern, uncle. My father is well. As long as he's healthy." Li Jingma stroked his short beard and nodded with satisfaction. Then, he didn't know what to say. This was the first time he had met Cheng Chumo. He had already said everything he needed to say. Father Li was secretly anxious. Finally, at this moment, footsteps came from outside the door. The two of them heaved a sigh of relief. Cheng Chumo thought to himself, "I'm finally free. If it were anyone else who dared to dawdle with me for so long, I would have beaten them up long ago. Unfortunately, this is my good brother's father. I can't beat him up." Li Zishuan walked through the door and greeted his father first. Old man Li nodded, stood up, and smiled. "Since you're here, Xian, treat nephew Chonyo well. You mustn't be rude. You youngsters should have a good chat. This old man won't be an eyesore here, he." The two of them stood up to send Li Jingma off. After he left, Cheng Chumo sat down on a chair and crossed his legs. He didn't seem to be sitting upright at all. Li Zishuan did not care about these things. He asked, "Brother Chonyo, why are you looking for me today?" Knowing that Cheng Chumo didn't like beating around the bush, Li Zishuan simply asked directly. A trace of helplessness flashed in Cheng Chumo's eyes as he said, "My father wants to see you. He wants you to come to my house for a meal." Li Zishuan was a little suspicious. "Why would Lu Guogong want to see me? Could it be that you said something bad about me in front of him?" Then he silently stared at Cheng Chumo. Cheng Chumo felt a little guilty under his stare, but he still stiffened his neck and said, "What are you talking about? How could I, Cheng Chumo, harm my own brother? It's really just a meal." Li Zishuan stared at Cheng Chumo for a long time. Although he still felt that something was wrong, he couldn't find any flaws for the time being. "All right then, I'll pay a visit to Duke Lu. What is your father like? It's not good to go empty-handed on my first visit, right?" Cheng Chumo impatiently waved his hand. "You don't need to bring anything. Come with me." Then he suddenly paused as if he had thought of something. He licked his lips and said embarrassedly, My father likes to eat that gnawed chicken. Xiaoxian, do you want to bring some?" Li Zishuan laughed heartily. No problem. I was wondering what it was. I'll tell the kitchen to make 10 servings of gnawed chicken and bring them to Uncle Cheng." Then he went out to instruct the kitchen. The cook of the Li family, Annie Zhao, had already learned how to make gnawed chicken under Li Zishuan's guidance. Although it couldn't compare to the taste of the Drunken Immortal restaurant, if one didn't taste it carefully, one wouldn't be able to taste the difference. "Oh, wait." Cheng Chumo pulled Li Zishuan back. His face was full of shame. He carefully gestured with one finger and said, "This my father said, to let you make a pot of gnawed chicken and bring it over." "A pot? Damn. Were all the people in Old Cheng's family animals like this? Did they eat by the pot?" Li Zishuan staggered and almost sprained his waist. On Vermilion Bird Avenue, the two of them rode their horses toward Wide Lane. However, Cheng Chumo's riding posture was very strange. He held the reins in one hand and a super large food box under his waist with the other. Under the strange gazes of the passers-by, he used his leg to lightly kick the belly of the black horse under him, urging it to go faster. There was no other way. Cheng Chumo felt a little embarrassed for his father. Who would invite someone to a meal and then plunder a pot of delicious food from someone else's house? It was so embarrassing. Li Zishuan looked at Cheng Chumo from behind. It was rare to see the usually carefree Cheng Chumo embarrassed. He found it quite interesting. The two of them, one in front and one behind, urged their horses forward. Soon, they arrived at the gate of the Cheng mansion. looking at the two majestic stone lions and a pair of drumstones in front of the gate of the Chung mansion. Li Zishuan felt a little envious. Previously, he also wanted to get two stone lions in front of his house, but he was scolded by his father when he found out. These things could not be bought with money. Although the Li family was rich, they were still businessmen and did not have the qualifications to buy such things in front of their house. Walking into the Chung mansion, Chung Chimo pulled a servant over and asked where his father was. Then, he turned to Li Zishuan and said, "Xiao Xian, my father is now practicing martial arts in the backyard. It's still early for lunch. Come with me to pay a visit to my father." Li Zishuan nodded and agreed. "Well, there's no hurry to eat. We should pay a visit to the old duke first." He was also very curious about the famous historical figure, Cheng Yaojin. He had seen many versions of Cheng Yaojin on TV, but he had never seen the real person. Li Zishuan felt a little excited that he was about to meet this amazing person who had left a deep mark in the history of the great Tang Empire. Although the Chung mansion was not luxurious, it still occupied a large area. The two of them passed through several pavilions and buildings before arriving at the backyard of the Chung mansion. Contrary to Li Zishuan's expectations, the backyard of the Chung family was rather large. There was even a martial arts stage in the middle of the lawn. On top of it were 18 different types of weapons. A black-clothed brawny man with a full beard was currently wielding a pair of giant axes. He was swinging them up and down in a vigorous manner. Even from afar, Li Zishuan could feel the strong wind coming from the axes. An expert. This was an expert whose skills were at least not below his own. Li Zishuan instantly made this judgment. Seeing that the black-clothed man's face was somewhat similar to Cheng Chimo's, Li Zishuan guessed that this man was most likely Cheng Yaojin. Following Cheng Chimo, he walked towards a man. When the burly man sensed someone approaching, he put down his axe and turned his head to look. He saw his son and a tall and handsome young man walking over. Cheng Yaojin laughed heartily and jumped down from the martial arts stage. His voice could be heard even before he reached the stage. "Ha! You must be the new brother that my Chonyo has been talking about. Not bad, not bad. Your body is strong and healthy, and you are born with good looks." When Cheng Yaojin came forward, Cheng Chimo called him father. Li Zishuan hurriedly came forward and clasped his fist respectfully. "Greetings, High Duke Liu." Cheng Yaojin patted Li Zishuan's shoulder and laughed. "Ha! Don't be so courteous. My Chung family doesn't like these complicated formalities. Since my Chonyo has acknowledged you as his brother, we will be family in the future. Come, let's talk in the front hall." The three of them walked towards the front yard. Chapter 34. Cheng Yaojin was chatting with Li Zishuan in the front hall, mainly to learn about Li Zishuan's past. At this time, a pretty servant girl came in and bowed to Cheng Yaojin. "Master, the food is ready. Do you want to eat now?" Cheng Yaojin waved his hand. Then serve the food." The servant girl accepted the order and left. At this time, Cheng Yaojin said to Li Zishuan, "Today, thanks to nephew, I can eat chicken again." Your family's drunken immortal restaurant is too stingy, limiting the amount every day. I can't eat enough." Li Zishuan stood up and said, "This nephew didn't think it through. Since Uncle Cheng wants to eat, why don't you send a cook to my house to learn how to make this dish? This way, Uncle Cheng can eat as much as you want in the future." Cheng Yaojin was moved, but he still pretended to be reserved. "How can this be? This method of eating chicken is your family's drunken immortal restaurant's business secret. How can it be spread? Old Cheng will not do such an unkind thing." Finished speaking, he looked at Li Zishuan. His eyes were clearly saying, "Come and refute me. Come and convince me." Sure enough, Li Zishuan was very cooperative. "Uncle Cheng, what are you saying? This little bit of food can at most be exchanged for some stinky things. Since Uncle Cheng likes to eat it, there's no harm in teaching it to the Cheng estate's kitchen maids. In addition, this nephew believes that the Cheng family's servants will not spread the method of eating chicken." Moreover, there was one point that Li Zishuan did not mention. Although the method of eating chicken was novel, in less than a month, there would be other restaurants that could imitate it. Cheng Yaojin was a little surprised. Merchants valued profits. Previously, he had looked down on Li Zishuan because of his family's business. He did not expect that this child would value profits more than righteousness. What he said before was also a test for Li Zishuan. Good, you're an interesting child. You are not like other merchants who stink of money. Ha, come and eat. The two of you are not allowed to fight with me for the chicken for lunch. You must have eaten enough before, ha. Cheng Yaojin saw the servant girl bring in the dishes. He happily patted Li Zishuan's shoulder and invited him to the table to eat together. Li Zishuan only felt a huge force on his shoulder. If it wasn't for his good martial arts, with Li Zishuan's physique in modern society, Cheng Yaojin's slap would definitely have slapped him to the floor. As for Cheng Yaojin's shameless words, he didn't care at all. He was indeed a little tired of eating chicken. However, Cheng Chimo was not tired of eating it. On the way back, he was carrying a big box of food. Although he was a little embarrassed, he was still secretly happy. He thought that his father would not be able to finish all the chicken and that he would be able to get a share. He did not expect that before the chicken was even served, his father would mercilessly extinguish his hopes. He did not dare to argue with his father. Old Cheng would not reason with him and would only talk with his fists. Cheng Chimo sat next to Li Zishuan and ate the rest of the dishes fiercely while looking at his father eating. And delicious. Little Xian, you don't have to be polite. Other than this, you can eat whatever you want. Cheng Yaojin stuffed a mouthful of chicken meat into his mouth and chewed as he called out to Li Zishuan. Then he felt that his mouth was a little dry, so he poured himself a bowl of wine and ate the chicken meat while drinking by himself. He even forgot to call out to Li Zishuan to drink. Li Zishuan's mouth twitched. However, he was happy that Cheng Yaojin did not persuade him to drink. Otherwise, if Cheng Yaojin insisted that he drink, he really could not think of an excuse to refuse. He definitely could not use the excuse he used to fool Cheng Chimo. If he dared to say that to old Cheng, Li Zishuan believed that Cheng Yaojin would definitely beat him to death. After the meal, everyone ate and drank to their heart's content. Of course, Cheng Chimo was an exception. This fellow did not have a good meal. After the servant girls removed the banquet, Cheng Yaojin rubbed his swollen belly and let out a comfortable groan. He picked his teeth and said to Li Zishuan, "Little Xian, your chicken is so delicious. Little Xian, the chicken you gnawed on is really too delicious. I, old Cheng, have lived for more than half of my life and have never eaten anything so delicious. How did you think of this thing?" Li Zishuan looked at Cheng Yaojin, who did not care about his image, and said, "This was taught by my master. My master not only taught me martial arts, but also taught me some cooking, arithmetic, and the art of investigating things." Oh, that Taoist priest spirit void? Cheng Yaojin had heard Cheng Chimo talk about Li Zishuan's master before. Li Zishuan nodded. Cheng Yaojin said curiously, "I only heard that Taoist priest spirit void has great achievements, but I have never heard that he also knows how to cook." Was his lie about to be exposed? Li Zishuan was a little flustered, but he still forced himself to be calm and asked, "Uncle Cheng, you know my master?" Cheng Yaojin shook his head, a look of reminiscence on his face. "How could I know such an immortal? I only heard of your master when I was in Wagong more than 10 years ago. At the end of the Sui Dynasty, the world was in chaos. The Turks wanted to take advantage of the situation in the Central Plains. They burned, killed, looted, and committed all kinds of crimes. But at that time, the Central Plains was in chaos. There was no extra force to resist the harassment of the Turks. Once, a small group of over 200 Turkic wolf riders was raiding a village to the south of the Ain Mountains. An old man in a green Taoist robe came with a sword in his hand. He fought the 200 Turkic wolf riders alone and killed them one after another. Then he piled the heads of the Turks on the border between the grassland and the Ain Mountains. He set up a huge rock and wrote a cross on it. "Those who offend the Central Plains will be killed." Spirit void. When this news spread, the world was shocked. In those years, although a large number of powerful martial artists emerged from all over the world, no one dared to face a regular army of more than 50 people, not to mention more than 200 Turks with outstanding combat power. This kind of combat power was simply shocking. Taoist priest Spirit Void became famous because of this battle. After that battle, Taoist priest Spirit Void floated away and no trace of him could be seen. Later, although the Turks occasionally went south to take advantage of the situation, they did not dare to act like before. At best, they would massacre villages and cities. At most, they would rob the food of the people at the border. Brat, you're quite lucky to have such a godly figure as your master. Speaking of this, Cheng Yaojin's face was full of emotions. He touched the big beard on his chin and suddenly looked at Li Zixuan. He said with interest, "Since your master is Taoist, priest Spirit Void, your martial arts must be quite good. Come and spar with me, old Cheng." After saying this, he began to rub his fists, eager to give it a try. Li Zixuan was listening to Cheng Yaojin talk about his master's bravery from the side. His master had never told him about these things before. Who knew that Cheng Yaojin would then propose to spar with him? Li Zixuan's face was full of black lines. This Cheng Yaojin was like an elder, but with his rough temper, he did not know how to control his strength. Li Zixuan was not willing to spar with him. Li Zixuan hurriedly cupped his hands and declined. "My martial arts are low. How could I dare to spar with Uncle Cheng?" Cheng Yaojin patted him on the shoulder and said carelessly, "You're so wishy-washy like a girl. What are you afraid of if your martial arts are not good? Just as well, old Cheng can give you some pointers. I'll teach you a few moves, haha." Then, without waiting for Li Zixuan's agreement, he pulled Li Zixuan to the practice field in the backyard. Cheng Chimo also followed quickly, worried. Chapter 35. Duke Lu's Mansion, Martial Arts Practice Field. Cheng Yaojin took a lance from the weapon rack and said to Li Zixuan, "The two axes from before were too heavy. I was afraid they would hurt you, so I will use this lance to spar with you. Boy, what weapon are you going to use? Go and pick one." Li Zixuan did not bring his sword with him, but even if he did, he was too embarrassed to use it because it was too sharp. Since he could not refuse this duel, Li Zixuan had no choice but to pick a long sword. Isn't there a saying? Life is like that. Since you can't refuse it, then you should enjoy it. It just so happens that Li Zixuan needed some real combat experience to improve his martial arts. This sword was slightly light in his hand, not as heavy as his chasing wind sword, and not as sharp as his chasing wind sword. However, it was still a good sword. Li Zixuan casually swung the sword a few times to get used to the weight of the sword. Cheng Yaojin saw Li Zixuan's standard movements and his eyes lit up. He praised, "Hey boy, you are also a sword master." Li Zixuan's forehead was full of black lines. He almost cursed out loud. In his heart, he cursed, "You are the one who is a sword master." When Li Zixuan saw Cheng Yaojin practicing in the martial arts practice field, he knew that Cheng Yaojin's skills were not below his. He did not waste any time and poured his internal energy into the long sword. He took the initiative to attack. The first style of Taishan 9 swords, ride the wind. Li Zixuan held his sword and rode the wind. Cheng Yaojin's pupils shrunk as he thought to himself, "What a fast sword." Indeed, a great teacher produces a great disciple. He put away his contempt and held his lance as he flew up to meet the enemy head-on. No matter how fast this sword was, Cheng Yaojin, would not retreat. The sword and lance collided in the air, producing a sonorous sound of metal. Then, both of them were sent flying back. Cheng Yaojin was forced back 2 or 3 steps, while Li Zixuan was forced back 10 steps. It was clear that in the first round of confrontation, Li Zixuan was completely defeated in terms of strength. Li Zixuan was not discouraged. As soon as he landed and stabilized his body, the second style of Taishan 9 swords came right after. The sword in Li Zixuan's hand moved even faster, its trajectory like a flying dragon soaring in the sky. Carrying the remaining power of the first sword, riding the wind, its trajectory was like a flying dragon soaring in the sky, erratic. Cheng Yaojin was also unable to predict the trajectory of the sword. He could only wield the lance in his hand in a vigorous manner, not allowing even a drop of water to leak out. At this moment, Cheng Yaojin suddenly felt a chill behind his back. He immediately knew that something was wrong, but it was too late to turn around. He could only rely on his many years of experience in life and death battles to thrust the lance in his hand behind him with all his strength. A loud and clear sword hum could be heard from behind him. Li Zishuan's sword had been blocked. Li Zishuan also knew that this was not enough to stop Cheng Yaojin. He immediately changed his move. The third style of Taishian 9 swords, snow treading, left no trace. Li Zishuan's footsteps constantly changed. He waved his sword in all directions. For a moment, only the sound of sword and lance clashing could be heard. After more than 10 attacks, Li Zishuan changed his move again. He used the fourth style of Taishian 9 swords, Wave Breaker. Wave Breaker was furious. Li Zishuan's momentum changed. He stepped on the ground, and his whole body soared into the air. He raised his long sword and bent his waist. His whole body bent into a circle. Then, he and his sword were like a large wheel with sharp blades. He spun rapidly. It was as if he was riding the wind and breaking the waves. He flew towards Cheng Yaojin. Facing this ferocious and bizarre sword, Cheng Yaojin turned pale with fright. He no longer dared to hold back. Both of his feet fiercely stomped on the ground, causing the martial arts stage to rumble. Cheng Yaojin also soared into the sky, using his horse lance as a battle axe. He used the flying axe to attack Li Zishuan. The two collided fiercely in the air. It was like a comet hitting the earth. The rumbling sound spread throughout the Cheng mansion. The sword and lance separated upon contact. The two were once again sent flying. The difference was that this time, Cheng Yaojin retreated 5 steps before stabilizing himself. Li Zishuan only retreated 8 steps before stabilizing himself. Li Zishuan used 4 swords in succession, the power stack layer by layer. In terms of strength, the gap between him and Cheng Yaojin became smaller and smaller. After stabilizing himself, Li Zishuan did not stop. Using the power of the first 4 swords, he continued to use the 5th sword of the 9 Taishian swords, Absolute Dust. After fighting for so long, he could see that Cheng Yaojin was a master. Even if he was not in his prime, he could still block his sword. Therefore, he used the 5th sword with all his strength. The sword was bleak and cold. The cold light at the tip of the sword emitted a bright light. This sword, Absolute Dust, arrived in a flash. Cheng Yaojin had fought for many years, but he had never seen such a fast sword. He roared. Relying on his many years of battle experience, he predicted the direction. Using all his strength, he fiercely smashed the lance in his hand towards the sword tip. Suddenly, the stage was filled with smoke and dust. After a while, the smoke and dust dispersed. The 2 people on the stage were standing facing each other. However, the lance was broken and the sword tip was damaged. Both sides were injured. Cheng Chimo was below the stage. Since Li Zishuan used the first sword, his mouth had not closed. He had judged that Li Zishuan's martial arts were above his, but he did not expect that his martial arts would be so powerful. He could even fight his father to a standstill. His father was a veteran who had experienced hundreds of battles on the battlefield. People called him the devil incarnate. What kind of monster was this brother of his? He was younger than him by 2 years, but his martial arts were comparable to his father's. Watching Li Zishuan's dazzling swordsmanship raining down like a torrential storm, his father was barely able to resist by relying solely on his advantage in strength and years of battle experience. No matter how stupid Cheng Chimo was, he knew that Li Zishuan's martial arts were not on the same level as his own. Li Zishuan had already begun to draw closer to the masters of the older generation. Comparisons were odious. Cheng Chimo's little heart had received tens of thousands of blows. Not bad, not bad. Little Xian, you've reached the peak of Qi transformation at such a young age. The younger generation will surpass us in time. I haven't had such a good fight in a long time. Ha. Cheng Yaojin threw away the broken lance in his hand and laughed loudly. His laughter was so loud that it reached the clouds. He stepped forward and squeezed Li Zishuan's shoulder, sighing with emotion. In this battle, Li Zishuan had used his full strength for the first time. He had also fought to his heart's content. He threw the sword in his hand into the weapon rack and wiped the sweat off his face. He modestly said to Cheng Yaojin, "Uncle Cheng is too kind. Thank you for holding back. Otherwise, this nephew would not have been able to last until the end." He was right. If Cheng Yaojin had used his full strength from the beginning, he would not have had the chance to use these 5 swords. After all, there was an absolute gap in strength. In the end, he was able to tie with Cheng Yaojin. On one hand, Cheng Yaojin was old and definitely not as strong as he was in his prime. On the other hand, he relied entirely on the mysteries of the 9 Taishian swords. Every move was linked and the power was constantly superimposed. Cheng Yaojin laughed and waved his hand. "If I say you're strong, then you're strong. What's there to be modest about? You're too hypocritical. Young people should be arrogant. Don't be like those old scholars who are sour." What else could Lisa Xuan say? These words could be said by Cheng Yaojin, but he could not say it himself. He was also very helpless. He could only bow and accept the advice. Uncle Cheng is right. Cheng Yaojin sighed in admiration. "Your swordsmanship is exquisite. On the battlefield, I have always liked to use my strength to defeat 10 people. No matter who the opponent is, I'll smash them to death with an axe. I didn't expect that when you fully used this sword move, the power that erupted would not lose to mine. It's not easy for you to cultivate to the Qi transformation realm at such a young age. I never expected that you would be able to fight a great master with your Qi transformation realm cultivation. You really are worthy of being the disciple of an immortal. I, Cheng Yaojin, am completely convinced by Priest-Spirit Void." Li Zixuan bowed and cupped his fists. "Uncle Cheng is too serious. How can my insignificant martial arts compare to Uncle Cheng's? My master also praised Uncle Cheng's courage and loyalty when he was alive. He often mentioned you in front of this nephew." Cheng Yaojin's expression shook, and he asked urgently, "What? You're saying that Priest Spirit Void has passed away?" He had heard from Cheng Chumo that Li Zixuan had taken Spiritual Master Spirit Void as his master when he was young, but he really did not know that he had passed away. Hearing this, he was extremely shocked. Li Zixuan's expression also darkened, and he replied, "My master passed away 3 months ago from Mount Longhu." Hearing this, Cheng Yaojin's expression was complicated. He pinched his beard and sighed heavily. "I didn't expect that even an immortal like Priest Spirit Void would not be able to escape death. Alas." Chapter 36. In the backyard of the Cheng mansion, Cheng Yaojin sighed with emotion. Suddenly, he thought of something and looked at Li Zixuan with a smile. "Boy, your kung fu is so good. Are you willing to go to the army to gain some military merits and be bestowed with a title?" Li Zixuan's heart skipped a beat. He knew he was in trouble. He quickly shook his head and said, "Uncle Cheng, I've been away from home for many years and have yet to fulfill my filial duties. I really don't want to be away from home." After a pause, he continued, "But if one day the foreign tribes in the north dare to covet the national treasure of the Central Plains, I'm willing to go to war and be a small soldier in the border army. Just like my master, I'm willing to go to war and protect the country." The main reason was that Li Zixuan was lazy and didn't want to be restricted by the army. Thus, he declined Cheng Yaojin's offer on the grounds of filial piety. But the second half of his sentence was also sincere. If the Turks really attacked the Tang Empire, he would also go to war in armor. He couldn't disgrace the reputation of Priest Spirit Void. Besides, if the Central Plains were to fall into the hands of the foreign races, the tens of millions of Han would definitely be massacred. He had many loved ones in Great Tang, and if he wanted to live a peaceful life as a wealthy man, he needed a stable external environment. When Cheng Yaojin heard Li Zixuan mention filial piety, he frowned slightly, but didn't insist. He knew the situation of Li Zixuan's family. He was the only child. Although he was good at kung fu, the battlefield was ever-changing. No one could guarantee his safety. If anything happened to him, Cheng Yaojin would be too ashamed to tell his parents. When he heard the second half of Li Zixuan's words, Cheng Yaojin's heart warmed. He secretly thought that this boy was a good seedling. After pondering for a while, he said to Li Zixuan, "Since it's like this, I, old Cheng, won't say anything more. If you change your mind one day, Come and tell me. How could a dignified man stay at home and wait for death? My Tang Empire's men naturally have to earn military merits. Go back and think about it. After saying that, he patted Li Zishuan and left alone. At this time, only Li Zishuan and Cheng Chimo were left in the backyard. Li Zishuan stood on the side and carefully considered Cheng Yaojin's words. After a long while, he shook his head and said to himself, I'll just be a rich man. At present, the great Tang is still filled with fierce generals and powerful soldiers. The borders are safe and secure. There's really no need for me. He knew that Cheng Yaojin was saying these words to him because he cherished talent and wanted to guide the younger generation. He was very grateful to Cheng Yaojin for thinking highly of him, but he had no plans to join the army at the moment. Having lost the familial love, friendship, and love of his previous life, Li Zishuan wanted to live well for himself in this life. Cheng Chimo walked over and touched Li Zishuan's shoulder. He looked at him with a strange expression and said, he looked at Cheng Yaojin and said with a strange expression, Xiaoxian, you really hid it from me. I didn't expect you to be so secretive. Li Zishuan smiled and said, Brother Chonyo, I didn't hide it from you. You didn't ask me about my martial arts before, right? Cheng Chimo looked up and thought about it. It was true. He had only estimated Li Zishuan's martial arts based on his experience. He thought that even if Li Zishuan was better than him, the difference wouldn't be too big. Now it seemed that it was just his wishful thinking. Cheng Chimo patted Li Zishuan's shoulder dejectedly and said, Xiaoxian, your martial arts are really good. Other than Uncle Qin and Uncle Yuqi, I haven't seen anyone who can force my father into such a difficult situation. Moreover, you're younger than me by 2 years. Today, I've been dealt a blow by you. Li Zishuan saw that Cheng Chimo's mood seemed to be a little down. He patted his shoulder and comforted him. Brother Chonyo, what are you saying? You and I are brothers. If you need help, how can I not help? No matter how good my martial arts are, I wouldn't use it against my own brother, right? Cheng Chimo thought about it. That's right. If that's the case, won't I have such a great master to help me when I fight in the future? Thinking of this, Cheng Chimo chuckled and said, Xiaoxian, I like your words. Ha! You're indeed a good brother. If one day I get into a fight with someone, you have to remember to help me. Li Zishuan was speechless. This idiot, he really didn't know what to say to him. Cheng Chimo was happy for a while. He then touched Li Zishuan and asked, Xiaoxian, what my father said, are you really not going to reconsider it? My father wants to send me to the Northern Army next year to gain some military merits. Do you want to go with me? With our martial arts, we'll definitely be able to gallop on the battlefield and kill the Turks until they piss their pants. Huh? Li Zishuan shook his head expressionlessly and said, I don't want to join the army for the time being. I have to stay at home and fulfill my filial duties. When I change my mind, I'll come and talk to Uncle Cheng. Cheng Chimo chuckled and said, Huh, make it up, keep making it up. Do you think I don't know you? You're just lazy and don't want to go to the battlefield. That's why you're using this excuse to fool my father, right? If my father finds out, he'll beat you to death. Huh? After saying that, he looked at Li Zishuan with a gloating expression. Li Zishuan's face was full of black lines. He didn't expect this idiot to see through him. He said unhappily, Oh, I just remembered that my cook went home to visit her parents. I'm afraid she won't be back for the next 2 months. The cook from the public house shouldn't come to my house for the time being, right? This idiot just called him brother, and now he wanted to betray him. Cheng Chimo immediately panicked and said shamelessly, Don't. I said the wrong thing. Xiaoxian, you're really a filial son. The heavens can be my witness. At this moment, Cheng Chimo really hated himself for speaking the truth. If because of this sentence, his family could only eat chicken 2 months later, even if he was not beaten to death by his own father, he would regret it to death. Looking at this scoundrel, Li Zishuan laughed and said, But why did I hear someone say that I'm lazy by nature and that I'm using filial piety as an excuse to avoid joining the army? Cheng Chimo stuttered for a while. Then he stretched his neck exaggeratedly and looked around. He said, Who said that? Why didn't I hear it? Xiaoxian, you must have heard wrongly. Oh, there was a dog barking here just now. You must have heard wrongly. Lisa Schwan looked around and asked curiously, "Where's the dog here?" Ching Chumo stretched his neck and said, "Why not? Look, it's right behind you, woof woof." Lisa Schwan had just turned around when Ching Chumo immediately mimicked a dog and barked 3 times. Chung Chumo shouted. The dog ran away. "It barked just now. Did you hear it?" Lisa Schwan was speechless. This idiot was going all out in order to eat the chicken as soon as possible. He said helplessly, "Okay, I just remembered. I seem to have remembered wrongly. It wasn't my cook. It was my mother's maid who wanted to go home to visit her parents." Ching Chumo was furious. He didn't expect to be tricked by Lisa Schwan. He pointed at him and shouted, "Good boy, you dare to lie to me." After saying that, he rolled up his sleeves and was about to beat him up. But he didn't think about it. With his martial arts, he didn't know who would be the one to beat who. In an instant, the backyard of the Chung residence was filled with smoke and dust. Then came Chung Chumo's wailing and howling. "Ow, damn it. We agreed not to hit people in the face. You're really shameless. I'm going to cut ties with you." Chapter 37. The sun was setting. Lisa Schwan was in a very good mood after beating up this idiot who didn't know the immensity of heaven and earth. Under the strange gaze of the Chung family's housekeeper, he left Chung Chumo lying on the ground with a bloody nose and a swollen face. How many people in Chang and city could beat up Lu Guogong's son without fear of retaliation? "I'm just that awesome, humph." Lisa Schwan was secretly pleased. The next day, Lisa Schwan woke up early for the first time. He didn't know why he couldn't fall asleep. Maybe it was because he had been home for so many days and slept in every day. Plus, there wasn't much entertainment at night, so he went to bed early. After washing up, he went to the front hall. His parents and Lan were preparing to eat. "Hey, let's eat together." Lisa Schwan quickly went in and sat beside Lan. "Oh my, did the sun rise from the west today? Our young Master Li woke up so early?" Father Li saw Lisa Schwan coming over to eat breakfast with them and teased him as if he was an alien. Lisa Schwan's mouth twitched. He didn't know what was wrong with his father. Last time he woke up late, he scolded him. This time he woke up early, he was still scolding him. Just as he was about to speak, he saw that his mother couldn't sit still. "How can you talk to Xian like that? Speaking so strangely early in the morning. You'll sleep in the study tonight," Mrs. Li said angrily as she pinched Father Li's waist. Father Li grimaced from the pinch. His face darkened when he heard his wife's last sentence. He secretly hated himself for having such a cheap mouth. He stopped talking and buried his head in the food. Lisa Schwan was amused, but he didn't dare to laugh out loud. Lana didn't care so much. Seeing this scene, she was so happy that she couldn't stop giggling. "Ha ha, that's great, that's great. Lana can finally sleep with Mom tonight." Father Li almost vomited blood when he heard this. He had doted on his daughter for nothing. "Father, Mother, yesterday at the house of High Duke, Lu Guogong saw that I was good at martial arts, so he asked me if I wanted to join the army. He wanted me to go to the army to gain experience." The family laughed and joked for a while before Lisa Schwan began to talk about business. A trace of worry and anxiety flashed across Mrs. Li's face. Mr. Li was stunned for a moment. He pondered for a while and said slowly, "Since Lu Guogong said so, it means that he thinks highly of you and wants to promote you. It's your fortune. As the saying goes, scholars, farmers, workers, and merchants. Although my Li family is rich, in the end, we are only merchants. My great Tang was founded on martial prowess. Duke of Lu, your actions are to pave the way for your future. I didn't think that Xian would have such an opportunity." "Xian, did you agree with him?" Sigh, listening to Dad's words. It further proves that the status of merchants is indeed low. It seems that I have to find an opportunity to make a contribution and become a marquis or a duke so that Dad and Mom can be happy. Does this guy think that marquis and dukes are cabbages? Interrupting his thoughts, Lisa Schwan shook his head at Dad and said, "I didn't agree. I've been away from home for 8 years and have just returned. I haven't fulfilled my filial duties in front of my parents. So how can I go to the battlefield?" Mrs. Li heard and immediately breathed a sigh of relief. She was gratified and happy. Her son had been away from home for so many years and finally came back. She was really worried that her son would go to war. She didn't expect her son to be successful, just safe and sound. Mr. Lee heard and sighed softly. He was a little disappointed, but also relieved. He asked, "Then Lu Guogong didn't blame you, right?" Li Zixuan smiled and said, "Father, Lu Guogong is such a person. Why would he blame me for such a small matter? Besides, Chung Chimo and I are good brothers. He treats me like a nephew." Mr. Lee heard and finally breathed a sigh of relief. He was also happy for his son's encounter. He smiled and said, "If that's the case, then little Xian, you should interact more with the House of Duke in the future. Don't treat this friendship coldly." He was already old and didn't care about fame and fortune. However, he had to consider Li Zixuan's future. "Father, I'm not the kind of person who fawns over those in power." Li Zixuan turned his head and looked at the sky at a 45-degree angle. He said proudly and playfully, "Little brat, I'm doing this for you. Who are you calling a fawning over those in power? I think you're itching for a beating again, aren't you?" Old Manly was furious. He. Lawner giggled happily at the side. Mrs. Lee looked at them and smiled. This is what a family should be like. It's good to have a family reunion. "Brother, it's so boring. Why don't you tell Lon some more stories?" Lawner followed her brother to the west courtyard after breakfast. However, she didn't see anything interesting. She just wanted to listen to stories. This girl had been sticking to him all the time recently. Li Zixuan squatted down and casually plucked a weed in front of him. He twisted it a few times in his hand and said gloomily, "Didn't I already tell you Journey to the West? What else is there to tell?" The Journey to the West in his stomach had already been tricked by Lawner with all kinds of excuses. For example, one day, Lawner ran over to him with a frightened expression and yelled, "Brother, brother!" Lawner just saw such a big rat in the room. Lawner was scared to death. "Brother, quickly tell Lawner Journey to the West to calm her nerves." This girl's expression and actions were really on point. They were so vivid and lifelike. It would be a pity if she didn't become a child star in the modern era. Li Zixuan knew that the girl was lying. How could there be a rat in her room? He wouldn't believe it even if he was beaten to death. However, he couldn't resist her coaxing and pestering. He could only obediently tell her the story. Another example was one day. Lana ran over while wiping her tears. She cried and said, "Brother, little Gray is dead. Boo-hoo, Lana is so sad." Lana wants to listen to Brother's story. Boo-hoo, Little Gray was a little gray dog that Lana had raised for more than 2 years. Li Zixuan saw Lana crying so sadly. His heart was broken. He didn't care if Lana was lying or not. He told her 2 chapters of Journey to the West without hesitation. Who knew that the next day, when Li Zixuan went to the backyard to look for Lana, he saw Little Gray wagging its tail and intimately biting the hem of his clothes, trying to worm its way into being friends with him. Li Zixuan, who felt that his IQ had been crushed, flew into a rage and kicked Little Gray away. Little Gray rolled on the ground and whined pitifully at him. So, if this girl was in the modern era, she would definitely be a movie queen. Recalling what had happened in the past few days, Li Zixuan couldn't help but sigh. At this time, Lon came over with a smile. She shook Li Zixuan's arm intimately and said slyly, "Since Journey to the West is finished, Brother can tell Lon is something else. As long as you don't tell Yang Shanbua and Zhu Yingtai from last time." Li Zixuan rubbed his head in distress. He still had many stories in his mind, but he couldn't think of anything suitable for children. Suddenly, he had an idea and said to Lana, "Lana, let's not tell stories today. Brother will make you something fun, okay?" Lana's eyes lit up. She excitedly agreed in a crisp voice, Okay. What is Brother going to make for Lon? You'll know in a while." Chapter 38. Li Zixuan ran to the kitchen, and after searching for a long time, he finally found a very thick piece of wood. After examining it carefully, he realized that it was actually a yellow birch. He secretly praised his good luck. Yellow birchwood was fine and sturdy, easy to polish. It also had good grip strength and was not easily deformed. It was a good material for making skateboards. That's right, Lisa Schwan wanted to make a skateboard for Lana. However, it was a skateboard with handles in front. This kind of skateboard had a higher safety factor. Lisa Schwan carried the piece of wood with one hand and came to his small courtyard. Lana was still waiting for him here. Lana saw her brother carrying a large piece of wood over and ran forward to ask, "Brother, are you going to make a puppet for Lana? But what's so fun about puppets?" This little girl was still picky. Lisa Schwan pinched Lana's porcelain doll-like face in amusement and said with a smile, "Of course it's not a puppet. What kind of skill does a puppet require?" Lana slapped her brother's hand away and wrinkled her little nose, saying unhappily, "Brother, your hands are so dirty." Lisa Schwan took a look and realized that he had forgotten to wash his hands after picking the wood for a long time. Seeing Lana become a cute little cat, Lisa Schwan laughed dryly. Afraid that his little sister would take revenge, he hurriedly went to the porch to make a skateboard. Lisa Schwan first used the wind-chasing sword to cut a piece of wood that was about 40 centimeters long, 10 centimeters wide, and 5 centimeters thick. The wind-chasing sword could cut iron like mud and cut wood as easily as cutting tofu. Moreover, the wood that was cut out was as smooth as a mirror and did not require any additional polishing. Lisa Schwan sighed inwardly. This wind-chasing sword was a divine tool for woodworking. If spiritual master Ling Xiu heard his current sigh, he wondered if he would climb out of his grave in anger and clean up the house. Lisa Schwan cut the exterior of the skateboard, took out a ruler, measured the dimensions, and drew the central axis of the force acting on the skateboard, as well as the connecting rod of the wheel. Then he picked up the wind-chasing sword and aimed it at the connecting rod of the wheel. Circulating his true chi, the wind-chasing sword began to rapidly spin in Lisa Schwan's hand. Not long after, 2 holes were drilled out from the side of the skateboard. The more Lisa Schwan looked at wind-chasing sword, the more he liked it. It could be used as a saw, a chisel, and even an electric drill. It was truly a divine weapon. Lana, Xiao He, and Xiao Shi were dumbstruck by Lisa Schwan's series of miraculous operations. It was not that they had never seen carpenters before, but who else in the great Tang could be so amazing? Lana couldn't help but ask softly, "Brother, was your master also a carpenter in the past?" The corner of Lisa Schwan's mouth twitched when he heard this. He silently mourned for his master who was in the underworld. He was the #1 expert in the Jianghu, a martial arts grandmaster, and a godlike figure. Yet, Lana, this little girl, called him a carpenter. Lisa Schwan said unhappily, "What nonsense are you talking about? Your brother taught himself carpentry. Don't simply talk about my master." Lana also realized that she had misspoken. She agreed and continued to watch her brother make toys for her at the side. Lisa Schwan cut 2 short sticks that were slightly longer than the width of the skateboard. After polishing them until they were extremely smooth, he inserted them into the holes that he had just drilled and used them as the wheel axles. There were no ball bearings in this era, so he could only make do with them for now. Without rubber tires, Lisa Schwan could only make 2 pairs of wooden wheels and nail them onto the wheel axles. He thought to himself that he would find a blacksmith to make a cast iron one in the future. Wooden wheels were not resistant to wear. In the end, he made a T-shaped wooden pole and fixed it in front of the skateboard as a handlebar. Just like that, the first super simplified version of the Tang Dynasty scooter was born. Lana, come here. Put your hand on this, 1 foot on the skateboard and the other foot on the ground. Give it a try. After putting away the tools, Lisa Schwan demonstrated the movement and encouraged Lana to come forward to try it. Lana was already eager to try, but she didn't know how to play with this thing. When she heard her brother's words, she immediately couldn't wait to snatch the scooter. Following her brother's instructions, she began to slowly slide forward. The wooden scooter was indeed much more rusty than the ones made with modern technology. Lisa Schwan stood at the side and could hear the rusty zhizh friction sound when the scooter started moving. But fortunately, his wheel holes and wheel axles were polished smooth. Lana used a little strength and the scooter began to slide. Lana just stepped on the ground and the scooter slid forward. She didn't control her center of gravity and her small body couldn't help but lean back. She couldn't help but cry out in shock. The two little maids were watching with their hearts in their throats. Lisa Schwann wasn't worried. The scooter wasn't fast. Once Lanner adjusted her center of gravity, she would be completely fine. Even if an accident happened, he was confident that he could save his little sister. Sure enough, at first, the little girl was very careful and didn't dare to step too fast. She was like a graceful lady, stepping there with small steps. After she got used to it, the little girl became bold and began to go crazy. "Oh, brother, look, Lanner knows Qingong. Come and catch up." Lanner stepped lightly and saw the scenery around her rushing back. Feeling the speed of the wind, Lanner was extremely happy and couldn't help but cheer. Sure enough, no matter what era it was, the scooter had a fatal attraction for children. Looking at his little sister who was cheering in front of him, Lisa Schwann's thoughts flew back to his previous life. At that time, the streets were filled with naughty children who rode on scooters and raced with each other. They would play for a whole day and never get tired of it. Perhaps he could give his scooter to the children of Tang Dynasty more than 1,000 years in advance. As for whether the parents of the naughty children would have a headache or not, it was none of his business. By that time, Chang'an City would be filled with naughty children riding on scooters. It was quite interesting when he thought about it. Lanner played for a while and felt that her brother's west courtyard wasn't big enough. She stepped on the scooter and went to the front courtyard to play. Lisa Schwann shook his head in amusement and followed her with Xiao He and Xiao Shi. Li Jima went to the clothing store in the West City this morning. A few days ago, after the introduction of a few old business friends, he recruited a new shopkeeper for the clothing store. His name was Sun Huaiming, who was in his 30s. He was smart and capable, and he was also quite honest. Today, Li Jingma went to take a look at the business situation of the clothing store and found that Sun Huaiming was extremely smart. He had introduced many new ready-to-wear styles, which were very popular. In just a few days, the business situation of the clothing store was obviously much better than before. Li Jingma was in a very good mood after reading it. He gave Sun Huaiming some words of encouragement before returning. As soon as he entered the house, he saw his daughter stepping on a strange wooden board and rushing toward him. Lanner saw her father at the door and was overjoyed. She wanted to show her father her new toy immediately, so she shouted happily, "Daddy, Daddy, look, Lanner knows Qingong." As she spoke, she stepped hard on the scooter and rushed toward Li Jingma. The speed of the scooter was getting faster and faster, and she was getting closer and closer to Li Jingma. "Ah!" After a while, Lanner screamed. The little girl only cared about increasing her speed and was too fast. Now it was too late to slow down. She couldn't help but be frightened. Li Jingma also noticed the danger at this moment. He could avoid being hit, but behind him was the door of the residence. If Lanner crashed into it, her head would be broken and she would bleed. He couldn't bear to see his beloved daughter get hurt. Li Jingma instantly made a decision. He stood in place and waited for his daughter to crash into him. However, with his old arms and legs, he reckoned that he wouldn't be able to get out of bed for 2 months after being hit. He just didn't know where Lanner got this thing from. When he returned, he must punish the servants in the residence. How could they let Lanner play with such a dangerous thing? Seeing that she was about to bump into her father, Lanner's little face flushed red with anxiety. Tears rolled down her cheeks. She regretted her earlier arrogance. Her father was so good to her, she couldn't bear to see him get hurt. Seeing that she was about to touch her father, Lanner suddenly felt her vision blur. Then, she was carried up into the sky. She turned her head and saw that her brother had carried her and the scooter. The little girl understood that she was saved. Her father didn't have to get hurt because of her. She was very excited. She hugged her brother tightly and whispered, "Thank you, brother." Chapter 39. In the front hall of the Li residence. "You stinking brat. You don't do proper work all day long. You're always messing around with messy things. How can you let Lanner play with such dangerous things?" Li Jingma paced back and forth, pointing at Li Zixuan's nose as he scolded him. Today's matter was too dangerous. "Father, it was Lanner who wanted to play. It has nothing to do with brother," Lana said weakly as she tugged at her father's sleeve when she saw her father scolding her brother. I haven't even scolded you yet. You're a girl, but you're always like a wild brat, following your brother around. You haven't been going to your mother's place to learn how to be a maid recently. Li Jingma changed his target when he heard Lan Er's words. Lan Er's eyes were red from her father's scolding, and tears were about to fall. She tugged at her brother's hand, lowered her head, and bit her lip, not daring to say anything. She also felt that she was in the wrong today. Li Zishuan couldn't stand it anymore. He reached out and hugged the pitiful Lan Er, saying to his father, "Father, Lan Er is still young. If she wants to play, let her play. Why do you have to force her to learn this and that? Our family has so much money. Do you think we'll be short of food for Lan Er in the future?" Although Li Jingma didn't expect his son and daughter to learn how to earn money for the family, when he heard Li Zishuan speak so matter-of-factly, as if all the money in the family was earned by him, he was so angry that he almost vomited blood. After calming down, he said, he calmed down and calmed himself down. So what if the family has so much money? Isn't it earned by your father? Why? Do you want to stay at home for the rest of your life? Besides, Lana is almost 7 years old. If she doesn't learn how to be a maid, how could she get married in the future? Li Zishuan was speechless. I wasn't even 7 years old. His father was thinking so far ahead. Although he knew that his father was angry, Li Zishuan was still a little unhappy. Father, I won't stay at home and wait for death. Even if Lan doesn't learn anything and can't get married, I can still earn money to support her for the rest of her life. My sister can't be wronged by anyone. Not only Lan but I can also rely on my own abilities to earn money for my parents' retirement. After saying that, he looked at the dumbfounded old man Li with an arrogant expression. His eyes seemed to say, "Yes, you didn't hear me wrong. I want to earn my own money." Lanner's heart was filled with sweetness when she heard her brother speak up for her. She hugged her brother's arm tightly and refused to let go. She thought to herself, brother is so good, even better than daddy. Li Jingma stared blankly for a moment. After a moment of calmness, he stepped forward and placed his hand on Li Zishuan's forehead. He asked worriedly, "Xian'er, you don't have a fever, do you?" "What?" "My Xian'er, you're sick?" A cry of surprise came from outside the door. Then, Mrs. Li Zishuan rushed to the front of Li Zishuan like a gust of wind. She pulled him over and looked at him carefully. It turned out that when Xiao He saw the young master and young miss being scolded in the front hall, she hurriedly ran to the eastern courtyard to ask for help. The servants of the Li family all knew that the master was afraid of the madam. Li Zishuan's face was filled with black lines as he slapped his father's hand away from his forehead. He looked at Mrs. Li and said, "Mother, Xian'er is fine. Don't worry." He then turned around and said seriously to his father, "Father, I was serious about what I said just now. I don't want to always stay at home and live off my parents. I also want to do some things myself so that I can take care of father and mother in the future. I know that father doesn't believe in my abilities, but wasn't the chicken I ate previously a proof? Just based on that alone, the Drunken Immortal restaurant's profits should be more than 1,000 strings of coins, right?" Li Zishuan really wanted to open a small shop and sell the things in his mind to the people of Great Tang. Not only could he earn money, he could also find something for himself to do. Otherwise, he would feel embarrassed if he stayed at home and lived off his parents every day. After all, the soul in this body was 25 years old. When Li Jingma heard this, he swallowed back the words he wanted to say. The profits the Drunken Immortal restaurant had brought in for the past half a month were more than 1,000 strings of coins. A few days ago, he heard from shopkeeper Liu that the Drunken Immortal restaurant had increased the daily supply of Drunken Immortal restaurant under the strong demands of the customers. There were too many high officials and dignitaries in Chang and City. Blindly limiting the supply would offend many people for no reason. It was really not worth it. Later on, Li Jingma simply decided not to limit the quantity of Drunken Immortal restaurant and even launched a takeout service. As a result, the sales of Drunken Immortal restaurant increased dramatically. In less than half a month, the profits were close to 4,000 strings of coins. Even though Li Jingma had done business for decades and had seen hundreds of thousands of strings of coins, he was still shocked by the profits from Drunken Immortal restaurant. When he heard Li Zixuan's words, Li Jingma's heart wavered. Just as he was about to agree, he suddenly felt a familiar pain in his waist. I say, you old fart. So you want to force Xian to go out and earn money? What's the point of keeping so much money in our family? Are you going to bring it into the grave? Since you don't want to see me and my son, then I'll go back to my parents' home with Xian. Mrs. Li listened to the conversation and immediately understood what they were arguing about. She was instantly angry. Old man Li grimaced in pain for being choked. He was full of grief and indignation, thinking that this woman was unreasonable. He quickly explained, "Sis, madam, it's not what you think. Let go first." Mrs. Li was not satisfied. She really loved her son. At this time, seeing that Li Jingma seemed to want to drive her son out of the house and rely on himself, Mrs. Li could not bear it. Her eyes turned red with anger, and the strength in her hands increased. Old man Li's face gradually turned from red to purple. Old man Li felt very wronged at this moment, but his wife did not give him a chance to explain. He immediately sent a signal for help to his son with his eyes. Li Zixuan was a little amused. He went forward and pulled his mother away, saying, "Mother, it's not what you think. Your son wants to do something. I have nothing to do at home every day, so I might as well do something to earn some money. Your son can't stay at home every day, can he?" Mrs. Li glared at him and said, "Why can't you stay at home? Didn't your father make so much money for you to spend? Why don't you stay at home with your mother every day?" Then she glared at old man Li fiercely. If he dared to say no at this moment, he would definitely have to sleep in the study at night. Of course, old man Li did not dare to say no. At this moment, he turned his face to the side and rubbed his old waist to recover from his injury. Li Zixuan did not know whether to laugh or cry. Who would encourage their child to be a member of the family? However, he was still a little touched in his heart. "Mother, Master taught me a lot of things when he was alive, and I still want to carry it forward. Besides, I can't rely on you for the rest of my life. Father is old. I want to grow up as soon as possible so that you can enjoy a happy life." Hearing their son's sincerity, the two old people were relieved. Their son had grown up and knew how to be filial to his parents. For parents in the world, there was nothing happier than this. Mrs. Li looked at her son with a face full of love and said, "Since Xianer wants to do something, Mother will support you. If you need anything, you must tell me. Do you hear me?" Li Zixuan hurriedly nodded in agreement. He turned around and said to Li Jingma, "Father, I can definitely build an even bigger business empire." Li Jingma looked at his son's confident face and stroked his beard in relief. He said, "Since Xianer is so confident, then go ahead and do it." Li Zixuan agreed. Lanner interrupted. Lanner also wants to help Big Brother do big things. Lanner doesn't want to be paid. Everyone was amused by Lan Er's innocent words. Li Zixuan smiled and rubbed Lan Er's head. He wanted to pull Lan Er out. Suddenly, he seemed to have thought of something. He stopped in his tracks and walked back to Li Jingma, who was full of gratification, and said, "Father, since I want to start my own business and open a shop, you can't not give me the capital, right?" Li Jingma said in a muffled voice, "Then how much do you want?" Li Zixuan smiled and probed, "It's not much. Just give me half a month's profit from the Drunken Immortal Restaurant's chicken. It'll be 1,000 strings. Is that okay?" When Li Jingma heard this, his eyes lit up. This little brat probably thought that the chicken he was eating was still limited to 200 servings a day. He pretended to be generous and said, "How can 1,000 strings be enough? Father will give you 2,000 strings as the initial capital." Li Zixuan was overjoyed. His father was still quite generous. He hurriedly thanked his father and left with Lan. Seeing his son's happy face and thinking that he had taken advantage of him, Li Jingma couldn't help but laugh dryly in his heart. Hee hee, old ginger is still spicier. Chapter 40. Li Zixuan was very happy to receive 2,000 strings of cash from his father. Don't underestimate this 2,000 strings of cash. According to the current purchasing power, it was almost equivalent to hundreds of thousands of yuan in the future. Li Zixuan had to plan his new shop well and what he could sell. First of all, he needed to build a technical team. As his shop expanded in the future, he would need to make more and more new things. Of course, he couldn't do everything himself. In some aspects, he was just a theorist. In practice, he was not as good as today's craftsmen. Don't underestimate the wisdom of the ancients. They only lacked suitable guidance. They were not as stupid as modern people, especially before the Ming and Qing dynasties. When the ancients' thinking was not restricted, a large number of creative, wise people emerged in the land of China. Li Zixuan had more than 1,000 years of knowledge. Coupled with the skilled skills of the Tang workers, he believed that he could bring a lot of new things to the Tang dynasty. Since he had come to this flourishing age, why not leave his mark in history? Li Zixuan wanted to make the Tang dynasty, which was already at the top of the world, even more ahead of the world. As he thought about it, Li Zixuan felt a surge of emotions. In the past, when he read history books, he could only be a bystander. But now, he was a participant in the construction of this prosperous era. But where could he find a suitable craftsman? First of all, the craftsman must have a good character. They must be honest and not cunning. Li Zixuan did not want the craftsman he had painstakingly trained to betray him in the end. Then, of course, the higher the craftsman's skills, the easier it would be. But where could he find a craftsman who could meet these two requirements at the same time? Li Zixuan had only been in the Tang dynasty for half a month, and his social circle was not big. It seemed that he had to trouble his father to find a craftsman. In his memory, his father could travel all over the country and did business for decades. He was involved in various industries, such as clothing, catering, cosmetics, and so on. His father would definitely be able to find a satisfactory craftsman for him. Li Zixuan, who had made up his mind, was about to look for his father to ask for the girl when he saw Xiao He running over while lifting her skirt. She said, "Young master Li Gaoming, who was eavesdropping on journey to the west behind us last time, is here. He is serving tea in the front hall." Previously, when he ate with Li Chengxian at the Drunken Immortal restaurant, Xiao He and Xiao Shi did not go. Therefore, Xiao He did not know that Li Gaoming was the crown prince. Right now, in the little girl's impression, Li Gaoming was still a little thief who eavesdropped on stories. Li Zixuan stared blankly. Now that he knew that Li Gaoming was Li Chengxian, he naturally didn't find it strange that Li Gaoming could find his residence. He was only curious. What was the crown prince doing here? At this time, Lan asked Sister Xiao He, "Didn't Sister Lizzie come with him?" Xiao He shook her head and said no. Li Zixuan nodded and said to Xiao He with a smile, "Xiao He, don't be rude when you see Li Gaoming in the future. He is actually the crown prince of the Tang Empire, Li Chengxian." Ah. Xiao He opened her mouth wide in shock. Her brain couldn't wrap itself around it for a moment, and she was stunned on the spot. Li Zixuan didn't care about the dumbfounded Xiao He anymore. He pulled Lan and walked towards the front hall with some amusement. Li Chengxian was drinking tea in the front hall when he heard footsteps getting closer and closer to him. He put down the teacup and looked outside the door. After Li Zixuan entered the door, he bowed slightly and cupped his hands in greeting. "Greetings, Your Highness." He didn't plan to hide it and directly put it out in the open. He wasn't good at scheming at all. In his previous life, whenever he saw his girlfriend watching a palace drama, he would have a headache. He really wasn't cut out for scheming. Therefore, he might as well put it out in the open today and see how Li Chengxian would react. Then, he would decide whether this friend was worth making or not. Li Chengxian was obviously stunned for a moment. After thinking for a while, he understood what was going on. He shook his head and smiled bitterly. "It seems that Brother Chonyo has already told you. Why, now that Brother Zixuan knows my identity, you don't want to make friends with Gaoming?" After saying this, a trace of loneliness flashed across his face. He was only a child who grew up in the palace. When he was young, he was bullied by his uncle's children. At that time, his father was hiding his strength and biding his time. No one supported him, and he didn't have a single friend. When his father killed his uncles, imprisoned his grandfather, and became the emperor, those who had bullied him before and those who hadn't bullied him before were all killed by his father. At that time, he didn't feel the joy of revenge, only loneliness. He didn't want to kill them. He only wanted to beat them up to vent his anger. When he became the crown prince, he welcomed even more loneliness. He had always maintained a calm smile. Those young people of the same age as him in Chang and City either deliberately kept a distance from him, like Cheng Chumo, or deliberately got close to him, wanting to use his identity to gain some benefits. Only in the dead of night would Li Chengxian look at the high palace wall alone, fantasizing about how wonderful the outside world was. Not long ago, when he went out of the palace with Changle's younger sister, he met Li Zixuan, heard the interesting story, and ate the interesting food. From the bottom of his heart, Li Chengxian was very envious of Li Zixuan's free and real life. He really wanted to make such a friend. He didn't expect that Cheng Chumo had told Li Zixuan his true identity so early. Perhaps Cheng Chumo had also warned Li Zixuan to keep a distance from him. Thinking of this, a trace of disappointment flashed across Li Chengxian's eyes. As expected, being in the royal family, one was destined to be alone. Li Zixuan had been carefully observing Li Chengxian's expression. At this moment, he saw that Li Chengxian's words were sincere, and the loneliness and disappointment in his expression didn't seem to be fake. He was relieved and thought that Li Chengxian's nature was not bad. He could make friends with him. Maybe under his influence, he wouldn't go on the road of no return. He smiled at Li Chengxian and said, I, Li Zixuan, have always made friends based on the person, not the identity. But if someone talks about the identity with me, then I will keep a distance from him. Li Chengxian thought for a moment and understood the meaning of Li Zixuan's words. He said happily, That's great. I have the same idea. The two looked at each other and smiled. Li Chengxian said again, Since you already know my identity, I won't call you a loner in the future. Let's call each other brothers to avoid being estranged. Li Zixuan didn't answer him. He smiled and asked, Why did Gao Ming come here today? Since his identity had been made clear, Li Chengxian didn't need to deliberately hide anything. He said, Sister Changle has been studying the palace rites in the palace recently. She feels bored, so she asked me to come here and listen to 2 stories. Then I'll tell them to her when I go back. I wonder if Brother Zixuan is willing? In fact, Li Chengxian had always wanted to listen to stories. But as the crown prince, he couldn't leave the palace frequently. This time, he found an excuse to leave the palace after getting his mother's permission. Li Zixuan understood his purpose for coming. He couldn't help but curse silently. This crown prince was really idle. He specially left the palace to listen to stories. Hey! Chapter 41. Looking at Li Chengxian's expectant face, Li Zixuan smiled and said, If Gao Ming wants to hear a story, it's useless for you to look for me. You have to look for Lan Er. Hearing this, Li Chengxian couldn't wrap his head around it. He looked at Lan Er in confusion. At this time, Lan Er smiled proudly and said, Brother has already told Lan Er the whole journey to the west. Lan Er has recorded it in the booklet. If Brother Gao Ming wants it, you have to give me a story in exchange. Hearing Lan Er's request, Li Chengxian suddenly looked embarrassed. If he could tell stories, why would Changle ask him to come over and steal the story? After searching his mind for a long time, he really couldn't find a story that could be exchanged. Li Chengxian was in a dilemma. Sister Lan can I exchange it with something else? For example, how about Brother Gao Ming exchange it with 5 strings of cash? As Li Chengxian spoke, he gestured 5 with his hand. He felt a little distressed. 5 strings of cash for a booklet was a little expensive in his opinion. Although he was the crown prince, his daily expenses weren't abundant. Even his father had been scrimping and saving. He couldn't even bear to repair the palace, let alone him. However, Li Chengxian didn't know that Lan didn't care about 5 strings of cash. The little girl's concept of money was still relatively vague. Lan shook her head and said, Lan doesn't want money. Well, let Lan think about what to do. Then Lan tilted her head and rolled her eyes. Suddenly, she smiled slyly and said, Brother Gao Ming, Lan will lend Journey to the West to you today, but you have to agree to a request of Lan in exchange. Lan hasn't thought of the specific request yet. Lan will tell you when she thinks of it. How about it? Li Chengxian was dumbfounded. This was more expensive than 5 strings of cash. As a crown prince of the Tang Empire, how could he casually agree to other people's requests? Li Zixuan couldn't stand it anymore and reprimanded slightly. Lan don't mess around. Quickly go and bring that booklet to Gao Ming. Lan was a little disappointed and could only agree in a muffled voice. Then she pouted and thought to herself, this big brother Gao Ming is really stingy. No matter how stupid Li Chengxian was, he would still be able to tell what that expression, that gaze, meant. A dignified empire's heir apparent was actually being looked down upon by a little girl. At this moment, Li Chengxian was a bit overwhelmed and hurriedly said, "All right, Lana, big brother Gao Ming agrees to exchange with you, but your request must not violate the laws of the empire." Lana was still disappointed. When she heard this, she immediately said happily, "All right, Lana, we'll go and get Journey to the West now." After saying that, in order to save time, Lana especially took the scooter and rode it to the backyard like a gust of wind. Li Zixuan saw that Lan could move so quickly by stepping on a strange wooden board. He couldn't help but point at the scooter in surprise and say to Li Zixuan, What is this?" Li Chengxian was a bit confused. It was fine that Li Zixuan's family was wealthier than his, but why did he have these strange things that even the imperial palace didn't have? Li Zixuan smiled and explained, "This is a scooter. I made it for Lan to play with when I was bored." "Why? Is Gao Ming interested in this?" Li Chengxian was a bit embarrassed for making a fuss over nothing and said, "No, I was just wondering if I could make one for Sister Changle. Changle's health has always been poor. The imperial physician said that she can't do excessive exercise, but this scooter should be quite suitable for her. Actually, it's quite suitable for me. I have to find an opportunity to let the supervisor make a few more so that I can play with them when there's no one around," Li Chengxian added in his heart. After all, he was only a 10-year-old child. Even if the children of the imperial family matured early, they still had a child's heart. It was reasonable for him to be curious about this scooter. When Li Zixuan heard this, he couldn't help but think of that beautiful girl with a kind of morbid beauty and a dignified beauty that didn't belong to her age. Suddenly, he had an idea. He turned his head and said to Li Chengxian, "Don't worry. Gao Ming, if this scooter were to be sold, would it be a big seller?" Li Chengxian answered without thinking, "Of course it would be a big seller." Li Zixuan nodded and said, "Since Gao Ming thinks so highly of it, I have a business here. I don't know if you'd be interested." Li Chengxian's eyes lit up. "Brother Zixuan, could it be that you want to sell this scooter?" Li Zixuan nodded and said, "I plan to open a shop that specializes in selling this kind of rare item. I still have a lot of methods for this kind of rare item in my mind. In the future, there will be more and more products. I wonder if Gao Ming is willing to cooperate with me?" "Of course I'm willing," Li Chengxian quickly responded. This was a good thing that fell from the sky. Unlike Li Zixuan, Li Chengxian knew the profits of the chicken he gnawed on like the back of his hand. Even his father was a little jealous of the profits. Now that Li Zixuan wanted to launch a new product and wanted to cooperate with him, only a fool wouldn't be willing. However, Li Chengxian thought about it and hesitated. "But how do we cooperate? To be honest, the East Palace isn't as rich as your family." Li Zixuan shook his head and said with a smile, "There's no need for Gao Ming to pay a lot of money. I'll use 2,000 strings of cash and my skills to get 70% of the shares." "Gao Ming, you use 200 strings of cash and help me recruit a few skilled craftsmen to get the remaining 30%. How about it?" Pulling Li Chengxian into the partnership was mainly because he was afraid that his profits would increase in the future and easily attract the covetous eyes of his peers. With Li Chengxian, the most powerful second-generation official of the Tang Dynasty, protecting him, his shop would have a lot less trouble in the future. Hearing this, Li Chengxian thought about it. This was a great bargain for him. He said happily, "Then I'll thank Brother Zixuan. I'll send someone to send the 200 strings of cash over tomorrow." He thought that if he squeezed around, he should be able to gather 200 strings of cash. He wanted to get this done as soon as possible. The East Palace was also short of money. "As for the craftsman, I know a very interesting person. I'll introduce him to Brother Zishuan another day. Li Chengxian added. Li Zishuan was a little curious and said, since even Gao Ming says that person is interesting, I can't wait to meet him. Li Chengxian was quite confident in that person. He smiled and said, Brother Zishuan, don't worry. That person will definitely meet your standards. At this moment, the two of them saw Lan coming over on a scooter with a booklet in her hand. With the previous experience of being at a disadvantage, Lan stopped accelerating when she was not far from the two. She just let the scooter move over according to inertia. Lan came in front of them and handed the booklet to Li Chengxian. She said, it took Lan a long time to finish writing this. Brother Gao Ming, remember to get someone to copy it and return the booklet to Lan. Li Chengxian naturally agreed and eagerly took the booklet. He was very happy and couldn't wait to finish reading the booklet. Li Zishuan saw that it was still early and suggested, there's no time like the present. It just so happens that Gao Ming is here today. Why don't we go to the East Market and choose a shop? He chose to open a shop in the East Market mainly because it was close to home and the palace. Although the West Market was bustling, it was too far away. It was also Li Chengxian's first time opening a shop. He found it quite novel. He looked at the time. It was indeed early. Since he had taken a day off from his mother, it would be a waste to return to the palace so early. Thinking of this, Li Chengxian eagerly said, of course. Let's go now. Lan hurriedly said, Lan wants to go too. Just like that, the four of them went out and walked towards the East Market. The other person was Steward Wang. Li Zishuan didn't know the market and wasn't good at bargaining, so he brought Steward Wang along. Chapter 42. Today, Han Yushi was instructed by Han Lijing to fill a gourd with the first batch of fruit wine brewed by the Han village and send it to Chang and for the young master and young lady to taste. It was not easy to have a chance to enter the city, so naturally, Iron Egg went with them. He even put a big grasshopper he caught recently into a bamboo tube and planned to give it to his sister Lan. Ever since Li Zishuan left the Han village, the scene of them escaping from the tiger's mouth in the mountains kept flashing in Han Yushi's mind. She could not forget it. Thinking that she would be able to see the young master today, Han Yushi got up early in the morning to dress up. She put on a relatively new pink dress and took out a silver hairpin from an exquisite wooden box at the head of the bed. She pinned it on her beautiful hair. This silver hairpin was left to her by her mother. Han Yushi, who was already fresh and refined, became even more beautiful. She was like a fairy descending to the mortal world. She was so radiant that she attracted the attention of passers-by along the way. Fortunately, the Tang Dynasty was still relatively clean. Generally, no one dared to kidnap women in public. The siblings entered the city from a Yinxing gate in the east of Chang. Looking at the neat streets and magnificent buildings, Iron Egg did not know where to put his eyes. He looked around randomly, like Granny Lu entering the Grandview Garden for the first time. They did not know that from the moment they entered the city, a pair of eyes had been watching them. To be more precise, they were watching Han Yushi. A man with a face full of pockmarks and dressed like a scholar carefully followed behind Han Yushi with two servants. The scholar with a face full of pockmarks stared at Han Yushi's figure from behind and drooled as he looked at her. Young master, if the old master knows about this when we go back, he will break our legs. The short servant next to him saw his young master's lustful face and knew that his young master did not have good intentions towards the girl. He could not help but persuade him with a bitter face. The pockmarked young master was lustful at this time. How could he listen to him? He said impatiently, "What are you afraid of? Didn't you see that these two came from a village outside the city? Later, when we enter the alley in front, the two of you go up and knock them out. Carry the older one to my house outside the city, and throw the younger one to a random place outside the city to bury them. No one will know." After he finished speaking, he licked his lips and sneered wickedly. "This little lady is really charming. She's even prettier than the courtesans of the Emerald Smokehouse. This young master has traversed the fields of flowers for so many years, but I've never seen such a stunning beauty." When the two servants saw their young master like this, they guessed that they wouldn't be able to persuade him otherwise. Their faces were bitter. In the past, the young master had done this kind of thing many times. However, after being discovered by the old master, the ones who were punished were always the servants. This time, they could only pray that things would go smoothly and not be discovered by others. When Han Yushi and Iron Egg walked into the alley between Xianping Square and Shengping Square, they felt that there were a few people following behind them. She stopped in her tracks and turned around to look. Han Yushi saw a wretched man with a face full of pockmarks staring at her lecherously. She immediately felt angry and flustered. However, when she looked up and saw that there were no pedestrians around, this alley was remote and narrow. Han Yushi was very anxious at this moment. "Little lady, how about coming home with me? How about I take you in as my 8th concubine?" The pockmarked man chuckled and said. As he spoke, he wanted to go forward and touch her. As for the little brat beside him, he didn't care about him from the beginning. "Get lost! Don't touch my sister." Iron Egg picked up a stone in the corner and stood in front of Han Yushi. He raised the stone in his hand to deter the 3 people in front of him. At the same time, he whispered to Han Yushi behind him, "Sister, take the opportunity to find the young master later. They can't catch up with me." Han Yushi quickly shook her head. "How can I do that? If they catch you, they will beat you." Iron Egg said anxiously, "Sister, what time is it now? If I am caught, I will at most be beaten up." Iron Egg has thick skin and is not afraid of being beaten. "But if you are caught, sister, it will be different. Children from poor families took charge of the family early." Although Iron Egg was young, he still knew a little about the dirty dealings of these rich young masters. He understood that if his sister fell into the hands of this scum, she would definitely suffer a fate worse than death. He might as well go up and be beaten up. Anyway, he had thick skin. Han Yushi's face turned pale when she heard this. After struggling for a while, she said, "Iron Egg, you must be careful. Sister will go and find the young master for help." "If you want to leave, none of you can leave." The pockmarked man snorted coldly. 2 servants blocked their way, one in front and one behind. At this time, Iron Egg suddenly exploded. He threw the stone in his hand at the servant blocking the way in front and shouted, "Sister, quickly leave from here. I will stop them." Although Iron Egg was young, he usually did a lot of farm work and was not weak at all. His stone hit the servant's forehead directly and smashed him to the ground. The pockmarked man was shocked. He didn't think that this little brat, whom he had always looked down upon, would have such great strength and speed. Seeing that one of his lackeys had fallen, he hurriedly joined forces with another tall servant to close in on this side. At this time, Iron Egg quickly picked up a wooden stick next to him and stopped the 2 people who wanted to chase after Han Yushi. Han Yushi shed tears and cried, "Iron Egg, sister will go and find the young master to save you." After saying that, she immediately turned and ran out of the alley. She knew that she could not help here. She could only hope that Iron Egg could hold on until she found the young master to save him. Li Zishuan brought Li Chengxian, and Steward Wang to the East Market. The East Market was very close to the Li family, so they did not choose to take a carriage and walk directly. They talked and laughed along the way. When they walked to Yongning Lane, they heard Lan cry out in surprise, "Brother, brother, look, isn't that Sister Yushi?" When Li Zishuan heard this, he immediately turned his head and looked in the direction Lan was pointing. He saw a beautiful girl in a pink dress with a fairy-like face, but she was crying like a pear blossom in the rain. She was wiping her tears as she ran. This girl was Han Yushi. Seeing this, Li Zishuan hurriedly exerted his strength and ran in front of Han Yushi. Han Yushi was thinking about her brother's safety and only knew to run forward without caring about anything else. She did not notice him at all and bumped into his arms. She immediately woke up with an ah. Looking up and seeing that it was Li Zishuan, Han Yushi was pleasantly surprised. She hurriedly pulled his arm and cried, "Young master, quickly go and save Iron Egg. A few scoundrels are beating him up in front." Li Zishuan's heart ached when he saw Han Yushi crying. When he heard her words, he instantly guessed the situation in his mind. He could not help but be furious. He did not have time to ask her why she entered the city today and directly said, Yushi, you lead the way. Quickly bring me there. He then shouted at the three people who were following behind, Yushi and I will go and save Iron Egg first. Lan'er, Gao Ming, you guys follow later. After saying that, he directly took Han Yushi and used the cloud-piercing steps. He ran in the direction Han Yushi pointed. He did not deliberately take advantage of Han Yushi. The situation was urgent and did not allow him to hesitate. Chapter 43. I told you to meddle in other people's business. I'll beat you to death today. Seeing the beauty that was about to be sent to his mouth suddenly fly away, the pockmarked man was very angry. He kicked Iron Egg, who had been knocked to the ground more than 10 times, and cursed as he kicked. Even though Iron Egg's skin was thick, he could not withstand such a fierce kick from an adult man. He was only a child who was not even 7 years old. At first, Iron Egg could still curse at this scumbag. Now he was vomiting blood from the kick and was like a pool of mud on the ground. He was already on the verge of death. Previously, he had thought of letting his sister leave first. If he was caught, he would most be beaten up. He really did not expect this scumbag to be so vicious. He wanted to beat him to death. Even so, Iron Egg did not regret it. Unlike other 7- or 8-year-old children, Iron Egg was sensible early. He knew that if it were not for his sister, he would have died long ago when he was young. Now that his sister was saved, his death was worth it. Iron Egg's eyelids were getting heavier and heavier. When the scumbag kicked him, he could not feel any pain. He really wanted sleep. Stop! A shocking roar came from the entrance of the alley. It was like a bolt from the blue, shaking the pockmarked man and the servants' eardrums until they were buzzing. The pockmarked man could not help but take 2 steps back in a daze. Iron Egg! Han Yushi ran over with tears in her eyes. Seeing Iron Egg covered in blood from the beating, Han Yushi picked up Iron Egg and called out Iron Egg's name in a low voice. Oh, little lady, you called for help so quickly? But can this pretty boy really save you? I think, little lady, why don't you marry me obediently and be my concubine? What future do you have with this gigolo? How can he be as handsome as me? The freckled man was overjoyed when he saw that Han Yushi had returned. He did not care much about the gigolo beside him. He was not even half as handsome as him. Even though Li Zixuan was filled with rage, he was amused by the shameless pockmarked man in front of him. He touched his face doubtfully and looked at the pockmarked man. After confirming that the scum was talking nonsense, he didn't waste any time and directly flew over to punch him in the head. That scumbag was still being narcissistic at the side when he saw a fist coming towards his face. It was too late for him to dodge. Roar! The pockmarked man was sent flying far away with a punch. The 2 servants who hadn't reacted just now hurried over to help their young master up. The scumbag's mouth was full of blood. He angrily pointed at Li Zixuan and said incoherently, Little rabbit, do you know who this master saw, young master, is? Do you know who my father is? You 2 filth, trash, hurry and tell him. Then he rubbed his face and took a deep breath. The tall servant came forward and said arrogantly, Boy, you're finished. Our young master is Chao Xiaoyan. Our master is Chao Rui, the county premier of Wanyan County in Chang. You dare to hit our young master. You're dead. Li Zixuan snorted and didn't want to talk nonsense with them. He directly went up to fight. Iron Egg was still dying and his injury was unknown. He had to find a doctor quickly. Perhaps Li Zixuan used to be afraid of these officials. After all, he was just a commoner. Commoners didn't fight with officials. But now he had the help of Cheng Chimo and Li Changxian. How could he be afraid of a small county premier? After beating up the 3 people, Li Zixuan kicked the tall servant and said, Tell your master to come and get him. I want to see what kind of person can give birth to such a scumbag. At this time, Lan and the others had already arrived. When Lan saw Tai Dan lying on the ground covered in blood, her eyes turned red. Although she had only stayed for a little more than a day at the Han Manor, she had already formed a very deep friendship with this little brother she had just met. Lana knelt beside Han Yushi and looked at the miserable Iron Egg. She cried, Brother Iron Egg, what's wrong with you? Get up, Lon, or we'll treat you to some chicken. Tai Tai forced his eyes open and said intermittently, Sister, Lon, Iron Egg is fine. Iron Egg helped you catch a grasshopper more powerful than Wei Qing. It's over there. After saying that, he pointed to the wall with difficulty. Li Zishuan and Lon looked over there and saw an overturned bamboo tube on the ground. A bigger grasshopper was jumping not far from the tube. Lana didn't have the heart to catch it. She just wanted her brother Iron Egg to get better quickly. At this time, a rooster ran out of a courtyard and flew past everyone. When it saw the grasshopper on the ground, it quickly flapped its wings and pecked at the grasshopper. It ran away like a wisp of smoke. Although Lana felt sorry for the grasshopper, now was obviously not the time to care about it. Li Zishuan saw it and suddenly felt something. It was as if he had suddenly thought of something. Li Chengxian asked, Brother Zishuan, what happened? Li Zishuan waved his hand and said, We'll talk about this later. The most important thing now is to send the Iron Egg to the medical hall. Gao Ming, I know you have guard with you. I'll have to trouble you to ask them to help send the Iron Egg to the medical hall. Although Li Chengxian was curious about how Li Zishuan knew there were guards behind him, it wasn't appropriate for him to ask. He nodded and shouted into the air, Wu San, come out. A person scuttled out of the alley and bowed to Li Chengxian. Your subordinate is here. Send someone to immediately send this child to the Imperial Physician Bureau. Have them treat him with all their might, Li Chengxian ordered. Yes. Wu San waved behind him, and two soldiers immediately came up. They carried the Iron Egg away, but he stayed behind Li Chengxian. Since he had been discovered by Li Zishuan, he had nothing to hide. Li Zishuan comforted Han Yushi for a while before angrily walking towards Chao Shaoyan, who was lying on the ground. He had roughly examined the injuries on Iron Egg's body. They were much more serious than the injuries he had suffered at the Han village. He really didn't expect this scum to be so ruthless toward a 6- or 7-year-old child. If he had come a little later, Iron Egg would have really been beaten to death. Li Zishuan was grateful to Iron Egg from the bottom of his heart. He was really a good child. Last time at the Han village, Iron Egg risked his own injuries to protect his sister. This time, he risked his life to protect Han Yushi. Although Han Yushi was Iron Egg's elder sister, and it was natural for Iron Egg to protect her, in Li Zishuan's eyes, Han Yushi should be his woman first, although she wasn't yet, then Iron Egg's elder sister. The 2 times that Iron Egg was beaten and injured were both related to him. Li Zishuan admired this well-behaved child from the bottom of his heart. He planned to keep him by his side after Iron Egg's injuries were healed, teach him some things, and nurture him well. Li Zishuan really wanted to give this ruthless Chao Shaoyan a good thrashing. Looking at his pockmarked face, Li Zishuan really didn't know where he got the confidence to say that he was handsome. Lana was also very angry at this moment. She had also seen that Iron Egg's younger brother had been beaten very seriously. The little girl ran over to Li Zishuan and angrily pointed at Chao Shaoyan and said, Brother, Iron Egg is Lon, or his younger brother. This bad guy just bullied Iron Egg, which is bullying Lon, or bullying Lon, is bullying brother. Brother, you must avenge Iron Egg. Li Zishuan didn't expect his little sister to speak so logically now. He was a little surprised. It seemed that the little girl was really angry now. Li Zishuan said in a deep voice, Lana, don't worry. Brother will avenge Iron Egg. Chapter 44. Li Zishuan angrily copied Iron Egg's wounds on Chao Shaoyan's body. Of course, since he was the one who hit Chao Shaoyan's injuries were much more serious than Iron Egg's. At first, Chao Shaoyan could still arrogantly shout a few words, saying that when his father came, he would teach Li Zishuan a lesson. But after a while, he was kicked until his whole body was covered in blood. He was gasping for air and could no longer speak. Brother, you beat him well. Lana was not afraid of this bloody scene at all. Instead, when she saw Li Zishuan beat Chao Shaoyan, she could not help but clap her hands and cheer. Chao Shaoyan spat out 2 mouthfuls of blood. He had never been treated so miserably. He could not help but swear in his heart that he would definitely cripple this brat in the future Housekeeper Wang was afraid that someone would die, so he quickly pulled Li Zixuan away. Young master, although County Deputy Chow is only an 8th-rank county magistrate, it would not be easy for master to clean up the mess if someone died. Han Yushi also came over and pulled Li Zixuan away. Young master, stop beating him. She was also afraid that Li Zixuan would get involved in a murder case because of her and her brother. Li Zixuan let Chao Xiaoyan live and walked to the side to wait for his father to come over. Li Chengxian saw that Li Zixuan wanted to make a big deal out of this, so he waved his hand and asked Wu San to come over. He whispered a few words in his ear, and Wu San quickly left. County Deputy Chow was dealing with official business with the county magistrate today. When he saw his servant come to the county office with a bloody nose and a swollen face, his heart skipped a beat, and he knew that something bad was going to happen. He quickly excused himself from the county magistrate and took the servant out of the county office. He went to a corner and asked in a low voice, "What happened? Did that unfilial son cause trouble for me again?" He knew his son's character better than anyone else. No matter how many times he reprimanded him, he would still cause trouble. Every time he caused trouble, he would have to clean up his mess. Fortunately, his son still had some brains. He didn't provoke those high-ranking officials and only harmed some commoner women. The trouble he caused each time wasn't too big, so he was able to settle it for his son every time. The servant hurriedly said, "Young master wanted to make a move on a girl at Xianping Lane, but he was detained by a young man. He wants master to go and get him." Hearing this, County Deputy Chow's face darkened. His unfilial son had indeed caused him trouble again. Although he expected better from him, he was still his son. He pondered and asked, "Who is that young man?" The servant replied, "Replying to master, I don't know." Deputy County Magistrate Chow waved his hand and summoned 5 yamen runners. Helplessly, he asked his servants to lead the way. He prayed in his heart that he would not kick an iron plate this time. When County Magistrate Chow arrived at Xianping Square, he saw his son covered in blood and lying on the ground. He quickly walked over and squatted down to check his son's injuries. At this moment, Chao Xiaoyan heard footsteps coming. He wanted to open his eyes to see if it was his father, but he couldn't open his eyes even with all his strength. Although County Magistrate Chow knew that it was his son's fault, he still felt a little angry when he saw his son in such a miserable state. However, the most important thing at this moment was to figure out the young man's identity. County Magistrate Chow suppressed the anger in his heart, walked forward and asked, "Who are you? How dare you commit a violent crime on the street and disregard the law of Tang Empire?" There was a trace of majesty in his voice. Li Zixuan snorted and said, "You must be County Magistrate Chow. What a powerful official's prestige. Why don't you ask your son what he has done?" "Lord Chow, you don't have to worry about my identity. My father is just a businessman." Hearing that the young man in front of him was just a businessman's son, County Magistrate Chow breathed a sigh of relief and felt more confident. At this moment, his prestige was more powerful. He shouted loudly, "How dare you commit a violent crime in broad daylight? Come on, take him back to the county government." 2 yamen runners immediately rushed forward to take him back. "Who dares?" Seeing that County Magistrate Chow was going to bend the law for personal gain in front of him, Li Chengxian couldn't bear it and shouted loudly. As the crown prince of the Tang Empire, he was very angry that there was such a scum in front of the emperor. He secretly thought that this time when he returned to the palace, he should suggest to his father that the emperor should reorganize the administration of officials. County Magistrate Chow didn't notice Li Chengxian until now. Seeing that he was just a little boy in his teens, he couldn't help but shout, "Who are you? How dare you obstruct the government from handling the case?" He was just a small official of level 8, who was not qualified to meet the crown prince before. Therefore, he had the courage to say those words just now. Li Chengxian was not afraid at all and replied, "County Magistrate Chow, you don't need to know who I am, but there is someone you definitely know. You will see him later." Seeing that the young man in front of him was so fearless, County Magistrate Chow was about to ask who he was when he saw a group of people coming to the alley. When he saw the leader, County Magistrate Chow was shocked. He hurriedly ran over and bowed to him. "County Magistrate Chow, I am County Magistrate Wanyan." The middle-aged man in the official uniform was Magistrate Hua of Chang. The city of Chang and was divided into Chang and County and Wanyan County. The officials of the two counties in the city, as well as Lantian, Xinfeng, and other counties outside the city, were all under the jurisdiction of Magistrate Chow. Therefore, Chow Rue was so respectful when he saw the people coming. Magistrate Hua heard from a guard that there was a man with the token of the East Palace and asked him to send people to save the Crown Prince. Magistrate Hua took the token and carefully observed it. It was real, and he couldn't help but be shocked. If something happened to the Crown Prince under the Emperor's command, he would lose his position as magistrate. He hurriedly brought over a dozen people. County Magistrate Chow tried his best to bow and greet Magistrate Hua in a low and flattering voice. However, Magistrate Hua ignored him as if he didn't see him and went straight to Li Chengxian. When he was about to bow to him, Li Chengxian waved his hand to stop him and said in a low voice, "Magistrate Hua, the governance of Wanyan County has collapsed. I will tell my father the truth when I go back to the palace today." Magistrate Hua's back was covered in a layer of cold sweat when he heard this. He hated Chow Rue to death in his heart. He was about to explain and plead with Li Chengxian, but Li Chengxian ignored him after he finished speaking. He turned around and walked to another 14-year-old boy. At this moment, Li Chengxian said to Li Zishuan, "Brother Zishuan, let's leave this matter to Magistrate Hua. Let's go to Shi City." Li Zishuan thought about it. There was indeed no need for him to do anything here. Chow Shaoyan had been beaten to such a state. If he beat him again, he would be beaten to death. Moreover, Li Chengxian had already warned Magistrate Hua personally. As long as there was nothing wrong with his brain, he wouldn't dare to cover for Chow Rue and Chow Rue. Looking at Chow Shaoyan's behavior, he knew that this was not the first time he had done this. Now, he had gotten rid of a scourge for the people of Chang'an. Li Zishuan walked to the side and pulled Han Yushi up. He took Lan, and Li Chengxian to Shi City. They were going to Shi City to buy a shop today. Chapter 45. When they arrived at the East Market, Steward Wang found someone from the broker house and explained his intentions. That person brought them to a shop that had recently shown interest. In the end, Li Chengxian and Li Zishuan took a fancy to a wood carving shop called Heavenly Craft Pavilion. The shop was rather large. It was a small 2-story building. People could live on the top floor and store their goods, while the bottom floor could be used as a storefront. Moreover, the shop's location was excellent. Diagonally across from the East Market's largest restaurant, the Yunshi restaurant was the location with the densest flow of people in the East Market. Li Zishuan was very satisfied with the shop's structure and location. He hurriedly signaled for Steward Wang to discuss the price with the shop's owner. He, Li Chengxian, and Lanner strolled around the shop. When he saw the wood carvings on the shop's shelves, Li Zishuan was immediately shocked. Taishang Lao Jun, Mithriao Buddha, 2 dragons playing with a pearl, and monkey birthday gifts were all on the shelves. Moreover, the layout of each carving was full. It was scattered but not loose, numerous but not messy. The layers were distinct, and the theme was prominent. The carver was truly a master of knife skills. The shop's name, Heavenly Craft Pavilion, lived up to its name. Li Chengxian was also somewhat astonished. Although he was young, he still had the ability to appreciate. Now that he saw so many exquisite carvings, he exclaimed to Li Zishuan, "Brother Zishuan, the wood carvings in this shop can only be compared to some of the finest heirlooms in the palace." Li Zishuan nodded. At this moment, Steward Wang had finished negotiating with the shop's owner and was walking over to them. "Young master," according to the shop's owner, his master was transferred to Suzhou, so he was in a hurry to sell this shop. The final price was 780 strings of cash. "What do you think, young master?" Steward Wang reported. "Cheap, so damn cheap." This was Li Zishuan's first thought. Compared to the price of housing in the capital of his previous life, the current price of this shop was too low. Li Zishuan hurriedly nodded in agreement, then personally walked over to the shopkeeper. He cupped his hands and said, "Shopkeeper, may I ask who the master carver of this shop is?" The shopkeeper had found a buyer and was in a good mood. He replied, "Oh, was this Lang Jun also interested in wood carving? The sculptor is Lu Dingyi, the famous sky broadsword in Chong and City. People call him Louis Dao. Our shop paid a lot of money to hire him. If Xiao Lang Jun bought this shop for the wood carving business, I suggest you find a way to keep Louis Dao here. There are many shops out there competing to hire him." After saying that, the shopkeeper pointed to a skinny old man at the door. When Li Zixuan heard the shopkeeper say that the old man's nickname was Louis Dao, he couldn't help but curse in his heart. "Why don't you call yourself Yi Daoniao?" In his previous life, he was a Dota enthusiast, and he had played a lot of Dota moves. Ugh, this guy couldn't help but let his thoughts wander. However, Li Zixuan really wanted to keep this old man with exquisite carving skills. Although he didn't plan to open a carving shop, he still needed a master who knew how to carve some rare items in the future. Li Zixuan immediately asked Lu Yidao to stay at the Heavenly Craftsman Pavilion for 5 times the previous salary. After the handover with the shopkeeper, they were given 3 days to move out. Li Chengxian saw that it was getting late and was about to leave. Suddenly, he remembered that their shop didn't have a name yet, so he asked, "Brother Zixuan, what should we name this shop?" Li Zixuan thought for a while and said, "Let's call it Wonderful Interest Pavilion. In the future, all the wonderful treasures in the world will come from this pavilion. Haha." Li Chengxian nodded in agreement and said, "We'll call it Great Kindness." Li Zixuan rolled his eyes and suddenly had an idea. He pulled Li Chengxian over and whispered, "Brilliant! I heard that His Majesty loves calligraphy. If you can find a way to let His Majesty inscribe a plaque for Wonderful Interest Pavilion, I'll give you half of the shares and 2 wonderful stories like Journey to the West. What do you think?" Li Chengxian's expression changed when he heard this. He immediately shook his head like a rattle drum and said anxiously, No, my father will definitely not agree." Although Li Zixuan's offer was very tempting, it was obvious that he was more afraid of Li Er's tiger might. To let Li Er inscribe a plaque for a shop, it was really his brother's idea. This was simply courting death. Li Zixuan saw that his refusal was very straightforward and knew that there was no hope. He settled for the next best thing and said, "Then forget it. But brilliant! You have to find a famous calligrapher to inscribe a plaque. Our Wonderful Interest Pavilion style must be as high as possible in the future. The plaque can't be shabby." Li Chengxian thought for a while and already had a plan in mind. He nodded in agreement and said, "That's not a problem. Oh, right. Tomorrow I'll bring over that very interesting person with excellent skills and machinery for you to meet. I see that Brother Zixuan often has some wonderful ideas. Perhaps the two of you can collide and create some sparks." Li Chengxian didn't see any problems with this sentence, but as a modern person, Li Zixuan saw a big problem. He cursed in his heart, "I'm not gay." However, Li Zixuan couldn't explain anything. Instead, he was somewhat interested in the person that Li Chengxian was talking about. He said, "Then I'll wait and see." Then, Li Chengxian bid farewell to him and left with the guards. Li Zixuan took Lan Yushi, and a few others and hired a carriage to go to the Imperial Medical Department to pick up Iron Egg. Seeing that Iron Egg was wrapped into a dumpling, Han Yushi's heart ached, and she couldn't help but cry. Lan Er's eyes were also red. Iron Egg saw that his sister and Lan were sad for him and hurriedly comforted them. Sister Lan Er, don't worry. Iron Egg is fine. It doesn't hurt anymore." It would have been better if he didn't say anything. As soon as he spoke, Lan immediately cried out. Li Zixuan saw that Iron Egg could already speak, and his injuries were bandaged. He wanted to take him home to take care of him. Thus, he found a medical officer and asked, "How is this child's injury? Can you take him back?" Iron Egg had no relatives or friends in Chang'an. Today, he was injured because of Han Yushi. No matter what, Li Zixuan had to take him back to the residence and have someone take good care of him. When Li Zixuan came to the Imperial Medical Department, he brought Li Chengxian's warrant. This medical officer naturally didn't dare to offend him. He replied, "The child's broken bones have been connected. Next, he only needs to rest. You can take him back, but you must be careful." Li Zixuan nodded. He invited a few students from the Imperial Medical Department to carefully carry Iron Egg into the carriage. Naturally, a few bedding had been prepared in the carriage to avoid bumps. Li Zixuan let Han Yushi and Lan enter the carriage to take care of Iron Egg. He also instructed the driver to walk slowly. He and housekeeper Wang followed behind the carriage on foot. The group rushed to the Li residence. Iron Egg saw that the young master wanted him to sleep in the carriage while walking by himself. He was immediately moved. He wanted to get up and refuse, but Li Zixuan sternly stopped him. Iron Egg's heart suddenly felt warm. He thought to himself, they are both young masters. Why is it that his young master is so good to us country bumpkins, but Lu Haojian and Chao Xiaoyan are so bad to country bumpkins? Bruiser had saved people twice, and both times he had been beaten. Although he had succeeded in saving people, he had been injured each time. He had a thirst for power. He wanted to be as strong as his young master, or even as strong as his father. That way, he would be able to protect his family from being bullied. Seeing that his young master was so good to his family, Iron Egg had a glimmer of hope. He thought, maybe if I beg the young master, he can teach me martial arts. Even if his young master was unwilling, Iron Egg planned to go back home and ask his father to teach him a few moves. Yes, Iron Egg was not stupid. He also knew that his young master's martial arts were better than his father's. After experiencing so many things, Iron Egg also understood many things. He wanted to become stronger. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.